Somewhere enveloped in smoke and fire, Seo Yul voiced a bewildered question in his mind. There's no way. Why was the oxygen being steadily burned away, leaving him feeling so breathless that he could barely keep a clear head? Even so, Seo Yul desperately tried to hold on so he could vent everything swirling inside his head. Yet, before he could finish speaking his mind, Fael calmly voiced the very thought the other was having. Who the hell are you now? Seo Yul hurriedly swapped his unfinished question for another one. Why on earth did I get dragged into this? His face clearly showed intense tension, even though not a single word escaped his lips. The whole story started with Seo Yul's relatively harmless drinking session. Kim Shin, right after filling his empty stomach, almost immediately began whining and sobbing. Seo Yul, man, what do you think is the biggest strength of my novel? He had heard this line way too many times to give the answer the guy actually wanted to hear. This guy was at it again. How could someone who called himself a writer fall apart like this just over one failed novel? His name was Kim Shin, and despite how he looked right now, he was actually a novelist. Right now, he was sinking into a psychological crisis no one could fathom. But it wasn't like this was his only flop. You read it too, so you know full well. The sudden table slamming made Seo Yul let out an involuntary sigh. Scared the life out of him. His mind miserably muttered words he couldn't say out loud. I'm the only fan who's been following his work since day one. Somewhere along the line, we ended up as drinking buddies like this. That twist of fate forced Seo Yul to grit his teeth and offer a few soothing words as a sworn brother. I feel terrible about it too, you know? I mean, you even named the main character in this novel Kong Seo Jun after me. Looking at it objectively from a reader's perspective, your prose is really solid, and your world building is totally amazing, right? But for some unknown reason, Seo Yul suddenly exploded in frustration as if he had been bottling up his madness for a long time. I mean, what's up with that title in the first place? The setup is generic, and the plot feels like something I've seen a million times before. It's boring as hell. Kim Shin knew full well it was his fault, so he could only sigh and mumble, I know, okay? That's why I asked you out today. If you were me, what would you do? The guy suddenly acting dead serious took Seo Yul a bit off guard. Huh? Looks like you're really stuck in a rut. If I knew the secret, I would have become a writer and made bank myself, instead of sitting here eating cup noodles on the street. Kim Shin didn't want to hear that, so he just pressed his question again. If you could change just one single thing in this story, what would you change? Seo Yul went silent for a few seconds before giving him a totally rational answer. At the very least, I'd throw out that status window that literally everyone and their mother uses. Then he burst into a sloppy chuckle at his own words. Can't help it, I guess. Is this what they call creative agonizing or whatever? Unexpectedly, Kim Shin started taking that suggestion dead seriously. Throw out the status window? Right, if the main character didn't have a status window from the start, he'd be free from the system's limitations, almost like an error-type existence. Seeing the guy so deep in his monologue made Seo Yul burst out laughing mockingly. Seriously, the second I say something, you immediately start working on character concepts. I was just talking out of my ass, so don't take it so seriously. Wait a second. A strange sensation surged through him, making him drop the beer can he was drinking onto the ground. Why am I suddenly so sleepy? That abnormality instantly snapped Kim Shin back to reality. Seo Yul? Seeing his close friend suddenly collapse to the ground while they were just chatting happily a second ago sent him into utter panic. Seo Yul, are you okay? Meanwhile, Seo Yul felt no pain, his mind just drifting in a haze. What is this? Why is my head suddenly spinning? His eyes stayed fixed on Kim Shin's anxious face. Hey, what's wrong all of a sudden? Kong Seo Yul. For some unknown reason, the very last thing Seo Yul saw was a bizarre smile creeping across the guy's lips. Who knew how much time had passed, but he slowly woke up from his stupor. He stared blankly at the familiar space around him, muttering in utter confusion, what's going on? How did I get back home? Man, my head hurts. I was so drunk I completely blacked out. Seo Yul forced himself up and headed to the fridge to gulp down some water to clear his head. Still, his head kept spinning, making him let out a helpless sigh. This is bad, I gotta get some hangover medicine. Seo Yul sluggishly walked to a nearby convenience store. The moment Manhwa picked up the hangover drink, she quoted the price right away. That'll be 5,000 won, please. While the girl was in a weirdly cheerful mood, Seo Yul was just frantically digging through his pants pockets in confusion. Highway robbery. But why isn't my wallet in my pocket? More importantly, why is this clerk staring at me like that? That's a look I've never seen before. Her intense gaze made Seo Yul awkwardly cover his face. Is there something on my face? Minha cheerfully spoke her mind. Oh no, it's just that you're so handsome. He could only freeze at her sincere answer. A surge of joy washed over Seo Yul's heart. First time in my life I've ever heard that. Yet he still replied politely out loud, thank you. But then Minha asked a strange question. You're paying with your status wallet, right? The bizarre phrase completely baffled Seo Yul. Huh? What does that mean? His mind tried to piece together a half-assed explanation for what was happening. Am I still not fully awake yet? That thought forced Seo Yul to make an excuse to leave immediately. I didn't bring my money, I'll come back later. Minha was a bit bummed to see the handsome guy leave, but she still didn't forget to drop a parting invite. Come back again next time. The moment he stepped outside, he had to go check a mirror, his mind still flustered over Minha's compliment earlier, calling me handsome right after I woke up. What does my face even look like right now? Wait a minute, whose face is this? Seo Yul ignored the bewildered looks from people around him and focused on analyzing his features reflected in a side mirror. A realization quickly struck him, leaving him completely flabbergasted. This, brownish-gray hair, clear double eyelids, a tall straight nose bridge, and a sharp jawline. Isn't this the exact face of the main character from Kim Shin's novel? Seo Yul couldn't help but drop a remark like a total weirdo. Damn, he really is handsome. To his surprise, the very next second, he gritted his teeth and punched himself right in the face. Is this a dream? Nope, that hurt way too much. Thanks to that action, Seo Yul suddenly caught sight of something he should have never seen. A gigantic tree sitting right in the middle of the city, looking like a grand wonder of the world. He stared at it in a daze as his brain slowly put the pieces together. A massive tree growing right in the middle of Seoul. Isn't this the world tree from the novel? Seo Yul suddenly overheard a noisy conversation between two kids standing on the sidewalk. You want to get into A-rank superhero academy? Of course, I'm gonna become an A-rank superhero, way stronger than my big brother. Just watch. Shiho suddenly popped open something that was completely absent from Seo Yul's vocabulary, the inventory status window. While he was still blankly processing all this new information, the kid suddenly pulled an item out of his text-based storage, primary weapon gear. Look at this. I'm gonna be a master of weapons in the future, just watch. Seeing the kid's item, Tu immediately let out a sarcastic taunt. Anyone can tell that's cheap E-rank trash. Holding that, you probably couldn't even kill a pigeon. Unexpectedly, because of that offhand comment, Shiho's brows furrowed and he burst into tears on the spot. My grandma bought this for me hoping I'd become a great superhero like my big brother. Having his sad past blurted out like that made Tu look visibly flustered. Shoot, my bad. Looking closely now, it actually looks super cool. Tu's desperate attempt to change his tune didn't make Shiho feel any better. In fact, he got so upset that he just threw the item away entirely. Out of nowhere, whether by accident or fate, that weapon hit a nearby pigeon straight on the head. The loud bang instantly set off alarm bells in Seo Yul's head. 100% confirmed. I've actually become the main character of this novel. Suddenly, a woman raised her voice out of nowhere to call out to the two kids. Hey kids, if you don't hurry up, the World Tree Festival is gonna end. While they screamed out in knee-jerk panic, he was frantically thinking over what he had just heard. World Tree Festival? If it's the World Tree Festival, that's the very opening chapter of the story. My memory's a bit hazy, but if that's the case, I haven't awakened my S-rank status window yet. Even though his mind was still a chaotic mess, he tried to calm down and think straight. I have to try and stick as close to the original novel's plot as possible. Let's get going. And that was how Seo Yul, who had just awakened in this new world, joined the crowded World Tree Festival despite knowing absolutely nothing about it. As he strolled through the crowded space, he quietly pondered all sorts of things, a cheat ability outside standard norms, one that boosts every stat 9 times faster than anyone else. The main character was supposed to acquire that ability right here at this World Tree Festival. At that exact moment, the bakery owner waved Seo Yul over for some reason. Hey, handsome student over there, try some of this freshly baked World Tree leaf bread. Since she was kind enough to offer, how could Seo Yul decline? Oh, how much is it? She enthusiastically gave a quick and straightforward answer, 3 for 2001. But I'll throw in an extra one for you. The aroma wafting from the tray made him freeze for a moment. Coming to the festival really makes it sink in that I've stepped into the world of the story. But the very next second, Seo Yul spoke up awkwardly, what should I do though? I actually don't have any money on me right now. The bakery owner was puzzled by his concern, but she still responded politely, that's fine, just open your status window and transfer it with your status wallet. That unfamiliar term popped up again, leaving him totally stunned. They use status wallets here too? Man, the author really went all out on detailed world building. But the MC hasn't unlocked his S-rank status window yet, so how the hell would I have a status window? That ridiculous reality forced Seo Yul to pull a random excuse out of his ass to decline the purchase. I'm really sorry. The thing is, money's a bit tight for me lately, but I'll definitely come back to eat next time. Unexpectedly, without a word, the shop owner just placed the bag of bread into Seo Yul's hands. She let out a soft, hearty laugh as she voiced her thoughts. Forget about the money, just take it and eat. That friendly gesture naturally left him utterly confused. Wait, ma'am, how can you do that? The owner just casually laughed it off. It's fine, go ahead and eat. Looking at you reminds me of my own son, it breaks my heart. It's festival day anyway, so eat up and go have fun. Though a bit suspicious of this random kindness, Seo Yul could only nod and offer his thanks. Thank you so much, ma'am. I'll enjoy every bite. The moment he turned around to leave, feeling touched in a way he never felt in the real world, have I ever been shown this kind of sweetness before? Living in this world might not be so bad after all. Only then did the shop owner pull a speechless face. How do you even get to a point where you don't even have 2001 on you? A while later, the festival area got increasingly packed, forcing Seo Yul to find a seat on the side to take a quick breather. Man, this is actually delicious. He happily ran a commentary in his head. The cream inside this chewy pastry is top tier. The fragrance of the green forest spreads all over my mouth. This is true fantasy cuisine. Living in this world forever like this wouldn't be so bad. Suddenly, Seo Yul caught sight of a familiar group of people. He stared intently at the three of them as his mind raced. They're definitely blonde hair, blue eyes, a toned physique, and a cheerful personality. Ha Si-yeon, with one corner of her mouth always smirked up. Kim Chul-jin, who for some reason was always wearing a headband. And Choi Ji-hoon, the guy with a sharp gaze, an imposing tall build, and an aura dripping with wealth. Seo Yul stuffed the rest of the bread into his mouth to recharge his energy, then commented in his head, aren't they the supporting characters who'll constantly run into each other later on? Kim Chul-jin isn't quite the main character type, but they look exactly like the descriptions in the novel. Should I go over and try to introduce myself? In the novel, they weren't supposed to meet before the bloody event at the World Tree. That sudden thought unexpectedly made Seo Yul freeze in his tracks. His face turned pale almost instantly. Right, the event that was originally supposed to awaken the MC's S-rank status window. The moment that thought crossed his mind, an explosion burst out right behind Seo Yul. Terrified screams quickly flooded his ears. Fire! The searing heat from the flames easily stoked Seo Yul's terror to a peak. I completely overlooked one thing. And that's the fact that I myself will have to go through the exact events of the novel word for word. Right at that moment, an ecstatic shout suddenly echoed through the entire area. You foolish bugs wallowing in peace. Fael looked at the chaotic scene he created, expressing his sheer delight out loud. It's time for enlightenment. As a hardcore fan of Kim Shin's works, Seo Yul quickly dug up the villain's info from his memory. A pair of wild eyes behind protective goggles, a bizarre appearance wrapped in strange mechanical devices. A deep purple outfit matching a spine-chilling voice, the inventor Fael Alo. As the guy threw his head back and laughed maniacally like a lunatic, Seo Yul quickly pinpointed the timeline of these events thanks to his past experience dissecting stories. Chapter 1. The World Tree Massacre has begun. Overwhelmed by tension, Seo Yul went into a complete freeze, watching Fael blast his laughter across the entire area. Seeing him like that, Ji-hoon shoved him hard. Hey! Don't just stand there dazed. Move, fast. Everyone, please evacuate immediately. Help the injured first. The way those three moved like they were completely used to this left Seo Yul feeling more bewildered than ever. Aren't these guys scared of anything? I was so hyped about getting transported into a novel. But what the hell is this? Seeing the peaceful festival grounds turn into a literal hell on earth made Seo Yul's heart feel like it was about to jump out of his chest. The sense of reality was on a whole different level compared to just reading about it. What the hell am I supposed to do now? Suddenly, he heard Jingyeon clearing his throat and muttering, status window, inventory. As the system equipped the embrace of the aquamarine, he called out to Fael in annoyance, hey! A terrorist attack right in the middle of a festival? Are you out of your mind? Jingyeon quickly summoned a massive sphere of water right above his head. While he was trying to put out the small fires nearby, Carolina led a group of people over to confront Fael. When the guy raised an eyebrow with a loud huff, she cleared her throat and delivered her rehearsed line. Looks like this was a planned attack. You've got some nerve targeting civilians in broad daylight right in the city center. The innocent civilians shouted joyfully in their state of despair, "It's the S-rank superheroes, the Mantra Squad and the Baihan Guild." After creating an escape route for everyone, Jingyan called out to the people in front of him, "Leave this to us and evacuate immediately, this will be over real soon." Knowing the plot in advance, Seo Yul furrowed his brows grimly. No, the inventor's true target is... Before that thought could finish, Fael couldn't hold back a burst of loud, arrogant laughter. He casually revealed a truth no one knew. "You say I'm targeting civilians? No, my target is every single person here." Thanks to his protective mask, Fael gleefully displayed overflowing confidence without worrying about judgment. Before anyone could react, he casually pressed a button on a small remote in his hand. Fael suddenly summoned a crimson energy sphere. Sensing that things were turning south, Carolina quickly threw out a fierce threat. "I don't know what kind of creature you are, but I'll execute you before you can pull off any tricks." She quickly channeled her element into her gear for hellfire punishment, prompting the supporter behind her to activate Guardian's blessing. For some unknown reason, the space suddenly trembled continuously, causing the status windows to blur away. The sudden turn of events triggered massive panic among everyone present at the scene. "What is this? I can't open my status window. What on earth is happening?" While everyone was flustered and unable to unleash their skills, Fael laughed out loud with pure delight. He casually spoke up, savoring the palpable terror of the crowd. "You fools who rely solely on status windows to check your stats and total power. To snap you out of your complacency, witness my greatest invention, the status disruptor. Kneel before the status interference, the system blackcode I finally discovered to manipulate status windows. Now, humanity shall be liberated from the unfair power of the status window and live in an era where they're judged by true ability and skill." Fael gleefully released bursts of energy from the creation he built. Seeing the superheroes collapse to the ground like dead ants gave him an indescribable sense of satisfaction. "Tell me, how does it feel for you superheroes to realize that your power never truly belonged to you in the first place?" Fael gently lifted Carolina's face to taunt her. "Come on, speak up, won't you?" Meanwhile, Seo Yul, who was hiding on the side, switched into full-blown panic mode. "I have to stop him." According to the novel's tropes, this is where the main character, the one without a status window, is supposed to step in. The quiet atmosphere bored Fael, prompting him to toss his homemade bombs around. "Cat got your tongue? That's your true nature once you strip away that outer shell." Almost instantly, the top 3 superheroes of the Mantra Guild perished forever under that horrific weapon. The bloody scene sent the other superheroes into pure panic. Even Seo Yul, who was calculating how to save people, missed a few breaths in shock. He scrambled back to his original seat to cover his mouth, trying to keep the nausea surging inside him from spilling out at the wrong time. A chaotic thought quickly flashed across Seo Yul's mind. "No, I'm really gonna die. I'm not the actual Kong Seo Yul from the novel." At the same time, Jingyan watched Fael slowly advancing toward him and hurriedly pleaded, "Please spare my life, just let me live, I have a fiancé." Right at that moment, Ji-hoon, for whatever reason, was still able to hold his sword, intending to slash him from behind. The sudden sight made Seo Yul let out a silent scream in his head. "Choi Ji-hoon." Sadly, before he could swing his sword, Fael casually kicked the blade away. He arrogantly tossed out praise for the fallen opponent on the ground. "I didn't expect you to lift a weapon like that without stat adjustments from a status window. Remarkable willpower. Or maybe you're just less affected by status interference. You're definitely worth studying." Ji-hoon ignored the guy's nonsense, reaching out to grab his black iron greatsword. The utter hopelessness of the situation dealt a massive blow to Seo Yul's spirit. "Damn it, I need to awaken fast, but I just can't do it." The mental struggle ended as he ignored everything and fled the scene. "There's no way I can ever become the main character of this novel. Damn it, even if I don't butt in, everything will still work out fine. Besides, this place isn't even the real world." The thoughts that followed couldn't even fully take shape before evaporating when Seo Yul accidentally saw a familiar face lying on the ground. The sweet bakery owner from earlier was now lying flat on the ground, having breathed her last at who knows what moment. That image was precisely what utterly shattered Seo Yul's daydreaming mindset. His eyes, which still held a tiny flicker of hope, were now completely submerged in the flames of despair. At the same time, the people blocked outside were also frantically worrying about everything. "Damn it, what the hell is this creepy wavelength? What's going on inside?" Yua let out an annoyed remark. "Right now, 9 members of our Baihan Guild are in there." The old secretary beside her quickly offered comforting words almost immediately. "Please don't worry too much, Lady Yua. The superheroes of our guild are very strong. I'm certain that right now, they're taking down the villain and rescuing the civilians." Contrary to their expectations, Jingyan was currently clasping his hands in anxious prayer as Fael stuffed a bomb straight into his mouth. Sadly, no miracle occurred as the guy casually snapped his fingers to execute him while busy talking to Jihoon. I'm going to have to bring you back to the lab. I need to dissect your brain and take a look. Before Fael could do anything more extreme, Seo Yul grabbed Jihoon's black iron greatsword. Unaffected by the magnetic field emitted by the enemy, he quickly mustered all his strength to slash at Fael. For some unknown reason, the guy raised an eyebrow and looked over, allowing Fael to dodge Seo Yul's lightning-fast attack. Missing that attack pissed him off so much that he clicked his tongue in frustration. After narrowly surviving the ambush, Fael hurriedly climbed onto his personal aircraft to create distance before feeling safe enough to speak. You're completely unaffected by the status interference? He raised his eyebrows lazily to express his utter contempt. Who the hell are you, anyway? Facing a powerful enemy for the first time in his life, Seo Yul felt a slight wave of anxiety. Damn it, I can't take him down in a single blow. At this rate, I'm gonna end up dead. His silence didn't offend Fael at all. On the contrary, the guy even took the opportunity to analyze his opponent right in the middle of the battlefield. To think this wavelength has no effect on you. Don't tell me you're equipped with an artifact. No, that's impossible. You're the real subject of research here. Fiali's inhumane madness gave Seo Yul goosebumps all over. Damn it. At the same time, Jihoon, who had just regained a bit of consciousness, looked at him in total confusion. Who on earth is this guy? Setting aside the fact that he can move freely, with such a clumsy stance, Jihoon narrowed his eyes, staring at Seo Yul's hands tightly gripping the hilt of the sword. The fact that he could withstand Fiali's attack left the sword's owner thoroughly astonished. Is he actually swinging the black iron greatsword that requires A rank strength? Seo Yul had no idea Jihoon was staring at him in a daze, completely occupied with gritting his teeth to suppress the turmoil inside his heart. When on earth is the S-rank status window going to awaken? Suddenly, he snapped back to his senses when he noticed Fiali's unusual movement. The guy quickly delivered a heavy punch to his gut to regain total control of the situation. Lacking any armor for protection, Seo Yul was sent flying a considerable distance away. The foul, bloody taste oozing from the corner of his lips plunged Seo Yul into instant panic mode. It hurts so bad. I'm really gonna die. Fael didn't give him a single moment to breathe, casually grabbing his neck and lifting him up to eye level. What an unexpected harvest. I feel like I've just discovered another loophole in the system. For some unknown reason, he started speaking much slower than before. Wait a minute, looking closely at you. Yes, so that's how it is? I have to head straight back to the lab right now. I'm going to dissect you immediately. Acting like a complete psychopath clearly scared Seo Yul so much that his face turned pale. I absolutely can't let this bastard drag him off to the lab. That thought made him frantically kick out, forcing Fael to lose his grip. The cool breeze slapping against his face accidentally helped Seo Yul regain a bit of clarity. Ha! For a moment, I was happy thinking that I had possessed the body of a main character in a novel, but it was just a nightmare. And just like that, my story comes to an end. At that exact moment, the very system Seo Yul had been waiting for from the start quickly popped up with an error message. Just a split second later, it dragged his body off to a whole new world. The swift action defying all common logic left Seo Yul completely stunned. He stared blankly at the vast white space surrounding him. Seo Yul didn't forget to check his limbs to see if any parts were missing. Suddenly, a strange sound rang out, making Seo Yul startle and spin around. A magical spirit appeared hazily, speaking continuously in a strange language. Mental resonance. Soul attack. He unexpectedly raised a sphere of energy and placed it right into Seo Yul's hand. He felt no heaviness in his hand, nor did he notice any clear change in energy within his soul. Before Seo Yul could even realize something was off, the sphere quickly burst open, transforming into a magical weapon. The brilliant light radiating from the item forced Seo Yul to squint his eyes involuntarily. At the same time, Fael stared at the sight before him in utter bewilderment. What on earth is happening? This is impossible. Is he resonating with the world tree? And what is that thing? At that exact moment, Seo Yul snapped out of his trance. He gently held the divine bow granted by the spirit. Unsure what mode he had triggered, Seo Yul quietly drew the bow and took aim, his face cold and emotionless like an assassin with years of experience. The moment Fael laid eyes on that weapon, he couldn't hide his utter shock. The form of a spirit race and an artifact? That means, yes, my research wasn't wrong after all. as Seo Yul released his grip to let the arrow fly from the bow. Fael was still immersed in sheer ecstasy, constantly muttering under his breath, "You are the one who has transcended the system itself." Those were precisely his final words, right as a hole was blown through his abdomen by the devastating power of the divine energy. As the excruciating pain gradually spread, Fael let out a blood-curdling scream. More importantly, the divine bow didn't forget to drag his sinister bag along into the distance. The immense destruction of the divine force caused the bag to burst open, triggering a massive explosion that could be heard even 10 kilometers away. Collapsed on the ground, Ji-hoon heard the loud noise and looked up out of curiosity. He stared blankly at Seo Yul, who was suspended in midair surrounded by divine power. Ji-hoon's hazy eyes took in his face before he completely passed out from his severe injuries. At the same time, having used such immense power, Seo Yul drained his energy rapidly like a dead battery. He quickly fell into a deep sleep as the divine energy held him up. A series of gentle, sentient gusts of wind softly guided Seo Yul's body down to the ground. Fiali's death allowed the people outside to rush into the scene at Yua's command. The strange wavelength has disappeared. Hurry, deploy all forces inside. The support personnel who rushed into the scene instantly fell into complete chaos upon realizing the situation was far worse than they thought. Multiple civilian casualties confirmed. Send in medical staff immediately. Lady Carolina of the Mantra Guild and Sir Jingyan of the Baihan Guild have also been defeated. A burly bodyguard anxiously tried to dissuade his master. "My lady, it's too dangerous, this area is still." Unfortunately, Yua had no intention of listening to those words, carrying her bow as she charged straight into the scene. "I don't care." Her mind raced with various thoughts as she moved at an unusually high speed. "I'm certain of it. This is definitely the work of the inventor Fael Alo." Tears blurred Yua's eyes before she even realized it. "I will personally." However, contrary to her expectations, the center of the scene was not Fael at all. The world tree gently swayed, dropping a few leaves, and the divine energy guided her gaze in a certain direction. She stood dazed at the sight she was permitted to see. This, could it be? Yua looked in bewilderment at the divine energy swirling around Seo Yul. Before anyone knew it, his whole body was cradled neatly within a leaf seal of the world tree, lowered purposefully to the ground. Who knew how much time had passed? But the system began issuing hesitant, unclear notifications. "Error detected in reduction. An error has occurred. System is activating the compilation protocol, unable to resolve through the system. Launching vaccine program DSTV-1. Seo Yul suddenly snapped awake as if someone had just called him. He quickly furrowed his brows, letting out an instinctive groan as a faint smell of rubbing alcohol drifted past his nose. Seo Yul mustered what little strength he had left in his body to sit bolt upright. The unfamiliar surroundings left him slightly flustered. Where on earth am I? A hospital room? So that wasn't a dream? His last memory was receiving something from a spirit-like creature that suddenly appeared, using that power to defeat Fael Alo. How could Seo Yul ever forget the guy's agonizing scream back then? Yet that very event made him rub his head continuously in frustration. This is completely different from the original storyline. I couldn't even unlock the S-rank status window. Instead, the only thing vividly imprinted in my mind is the system error warning sound. What on earth happened to me? Just as Seo Yul was about to sit in quiet thought a bit longer, Jia opened the door, stepped inside, and spoke up. "You're awake?" The moment he saw the person who walked in, he was so shocked his mouth gaped wide open, because the gorgeous girl Seo Yul was witnessing right before his eyes had the complete package: high-end outfit, blonde hair, green eyes, and top-tier visuals in this world. Seo Yul blurted out a name out of pure habit, trembling, Shin Jia. Her quiet words made her startle and probe. "How do you know my name?" Not only did he fail to answer her, but his mind spiraled with all sorts of anxious thoughts. "I'm in deep trouble. Shin Jia is the top heir to Myth Group, the #1 megacorporation in the world, a super elite who scored top marks at the Superhero Academy, supreme in both intellect and combat. Is that why? In the original work, she was the female lead and the main rival, constantly clashing with the male protagonist. She couldn't accept him enrolling through a cheated S-rank status window like his. Why is someone like Shin Jia standing right in front of me right now? The fact that Seo Yul stayed silent while lost in his stream of thoughts didn't make her overly uncomfortable. On the contrary, she just nodded and muttered, "As expected, you recognized me at first sight." That somewhat clueless reaction left him completely baffled. With her personality, she wasn't even supposed to treat him like a human being, making Seo Yul gasp out loud almost instantly. Jia seemed completely oblivious to his confusion, suddenly kneeling down in a solemn manner. "Honored ancestor." That action clearly sent massive shockwaves through Seo Yul. He asked in a trembling voice as his panic hit an all-time high, "Ancestor? What on earth are you talking about? Jia paid no mind to his flustered attitude, solemnly presenting her case with absolute seriousness. It is an absolute honor to meet the progenitor of the spirit race. Her deeply sincere posture pushed Seo Yul's mind even further into utter confusion. Progenitor of the spirit race. Come to think of it, there was a setting like that in the original story. Around 10,000 years ago, various races, dwarves, dragons, vampires, and many others, lived and competed all across the world. And among them, Korea was the land where the spirits resided, concentrated around the world tree. But why the hell am I the progenitor of the spirit race? Jia suddenly stepped forward, catching him slightly off guard. Contrary to Seo Yul's expectations, she just gently pointed her finger at his right shoulder. Honored ancestor, on your shoulder. Pushed by surging curiosity, he pulled his shirt down in confusion. What's on my shoulder? The unfamiliar mark on his body left Seo Yul completely stunned. What is this? Is this a spirit mark? Why is something like this on my shoulder? Seeing the clear panic on his face, Jia calmly offered reassuring words. Please do not worry, honored ancestor. The fact that this crest is carved onto your body is something only I and a few core members of Myth Group know. You do not need to hide anything from me. Her friendly and sweet way of speaking naturally made single guy Seo Yul's heart flutter. Shin Jia, you're completely different from the original story. More importantly, she seems to be making a massive misunderstanding here. His flustered emotions reached a crescendo when Jia suddenly grabbed the young elder's hand. She was completely oblivious to his mental breakdown from touching a girl, happily voicing the thought in her head. You're the one who defeated Fael Alo, right, honored ancestor? A savior awakened from the embrace of the world tree, to stop a catastrophic threat and redeem us with the power of the spirit race. I used all of Myth Group's intelligence resources to search for information about you, but came up empty-handed. It's as if you suddenly appeared out of thin air. Seo Yul, being fiercely loyal to the original lore, panicked in his mind upon seeing the main cast acting so clueless. At this rate, the plot is going to stray way too far off course compared to the original. Outwardly too. No. Me? A spirit and a savior? That's ridiculous. Unsure if she felt offended or what, Jia suddenly turned around. To his surprise, she merely grabbed a luxurious wooden box before stepping back towards Seo Yul. Are you saying you're not a spirit? Jia paused for a few seconds before opening the box. If that's the case, would you like to try equipping the ancient holy artifact of the spirits that has been passed down for generations in my family, Silence of the Forest? The gleaming artifact startled Seo Yul, making him lean back for a few seconds. What is this? Yet just a few seconds later, a forced smile broke across his face as a new idea suddenly struck him. Actually, this is perfect. I can use this thing to clear up the misunderstanding. Seo Yul quickly picked up the item and blurted out words straight into Jia's face. See? Nothing happened at all, right? Unexpectedly, the equipment piece suddenly burst with light. This unscripted development naturally left Seo Yul looking completely dumbfounded. What? Why is this happening? Before either of them could utter another word, Silence of the Forest rapidly radiated divine power outward. Seo Yul bugged his eyes out at the artifact in his hand, letting his thoughts run wild. The power is flowing in. What kind of error is this? Wait, I remember now. I definitely had this exact same feeling right before I lost consciousness. Jia suddenly cried out, the mark on your shoulder is glowing. Her voice startled Seo Yul so much that his mouth gaped wide open. While she marvelously marveled at this discovery, as expected of our revered ancestor, he quietly sank back into his own stream of thought. There was no setting like this in the original story at all. What on earth is happening to my body? How can someone like me, who couldn't even unlock an S-rank status window, react to an ancient spirit artifact? And more importantly, looking at Jia's naively happy face, Seo Yul couldn't suppress his silent fluster. What am I supposed to do with her? Come to think of it, Fael Alo was the enemy who killed Shin Jia's mother, and the fact that I defeated him was supposed to be revealed much later. Seo Yul tightened his grip on the holy artifact. Having come this far, he pursed his lips tightly to avoid blurting anything out while locked in an internal struggle. A short moment later, Seo Yul lowered his voice to put on an act in front of Jia. Do not utter a single word to anyone about what you saw today. That's right, I am indeed the progenitor of the spirit race. Your mother's soul awakened me while I was slumbering inside the world tree. She pleaded with me to eliminate that man, Fael Alo. That improvised story easily sent shockwaves through Jia, mother. Seo Yul had no intention of stopping his brainwashing effort just yet. However, I consumed far too much power to maintain this human form. Therefore, I want to rest like this for a while. Is there anything to eat? His god-tier acting clearly convinced Jia without a shadow of a doubt. Yes, I will have someone prepare it immediately. Please wait a moment, revered ancestor. Seeing her eagerly depart allowed Seo Yul to let out a quiet sigh of relief. Thank goodness, looks like she completely bought it. The moment Jia stepped out of the VIP hospital room, Seo Yul tiredly muttered, oblivious to the abnormality on his hands. To think there'd come a day when Shin Jia treats me like this. Just a few seconds later, his entire body was wrapped in a strange surge of energy. The intense pain forced Seo Yul to drop Silence of the Forest. The divine power discharging from the artifact made Seo Yul's heart race so fast that he couldn't help asking in confusion, "What is this?" Moments later, panting heavily to regain his composure, he furrowed his brows in deep thought. It's as if the brooch rejected my body and suddenly popped off. Could it be that I wasn't able to use it properly? But this feeling, it's so familiar. The vision I saw before losing consciousness. I definitely used the power of the spirit race back then. Don't tell me I awakened a different ability instead of the S-rank status window? Something like an ability that allows me to use the power of other races. Right at that moment, Jia enthusiastically pushed a food cart into the room. Revered ancestor, have you been waiting long? I apologize, revered ancestor, I will set up the food for you right away. Seo Yul still couldn't accept her extreme reverence without feeling embarrassed. I really can't get used to this. What should I do? My relationship with Shin Jia has drifted way too far from the original story. Even without receiving any response, Jia happily served him right at the bedside. Excuse me for a moment. That seemingly accidental gesture made Seo Yul's heart flutter uncontrollably. She's way too close. However, as Jia introduced the new dish like a 5-star chef, this soup was personally prepared by the Superhero Academy's head chef. I hope it suits your taste. The mouth-watering aroma bursting from it made Seo Yul drool instantly. This is crazy. Yet he suddenly froze, asking out of pure instinct, "Wait, did you just say the Superhero Academy?" Jia offered no explicit verbal answer, merely offering a gentle smile. Before walking toward the window under Seo Yul's bewildered gaze, Jia applied a bit of force to pull the curtains back to both sides. Seo Yul gaped blankly as the bright sunlight outside poured onto his face. Jia slowly turned around and addressed him. "Welcome to the Superhero Academy." Even though she received no reaction whatsoever, Jia continued to introduce the place like a model tour guide. This is the hospital room inside the Superhero Academy, where our myth group provides the finest medical services. Seo Yul unexpectedly broke into a happy smile. Wait, so I can still stick to the main plot after all? He gleefully wolfed down the delicious meal in no time. Seeing him make a move to step off the bed, Jia voiced her concern. Revered ancestor, are you already able to move? Will you be alright? Seo Yul didn't think twice, offering a concise reply. Thanks to you, I'm fine. More importantly, Shin Jia, I have a favor to ask of you. Who knew how much time had passed, but the Superhero Academy was enjoying a cool, refreshing breeze. The female students took the opportunity to scream wildly upon seeing the new student arrive. I heard myth group Shin Jia was enrolling this year. Turns out it's true. What's with those visuals? Unbelievable. She's ridiculously gorgeous. Can a human really be that perfect? Wait, who's that handsome guy standing next to Shin Jia? See, standing in the middle of the student crowd, caught sight of Seo Yul's face and immediately questioned Jihoon. Hey, isn't that the guy from before? Having recovered from his previous trauma, he raised an eyebrow and spoke up, that guy. At the same time, Seo Yul casually took in the gazes of the people around him. His heart was in a frenzy over this event being accelerated ahead of schedule. It's really starting. Standing high above, the academy principal looked down at the crowded grounds, unable to suppress a beaming smile. Looks like everyone has gathered. He joyfully used magic to drift forward. Once he felt everyone's eyes locked onto him, the principal announced clearly, "Delighted to meet you all. Welcome to the Superhero Academy's entrance ceremony. Please do your absolute best to become outstanding superheroes." And just like that, Kang Seo Yul's life at the Superhero Academy officially began. Following the principal's relatively brief opening speech for the new semester, the students gasped at Seo Yul's unrivaled good looks. Look over there, he's so handsome, seriously handsome. All of Seo Yul's joyful mood vanished instantly when a group of male students, annoyed by his presence, spat out blunt taunts. How on earth are all of his stats F rank though? He muttered two short words in utter agony. Damn it, right before collapsing to the ground trembling uncontrollably, unable to accept this reality. That's right, every single one of my stats is F rank. The Academy's entrance exam was divided into three main parts: the basic stat evaluation, followed by the written theory exam, And the weapon compatibility test. Seo Yul painfully recalled gritting his teeth to finish each section. When I had just completed the basic stat evaluation and got F rank strength, my agility stat plummeted to F rank, and even my mana stat was an F as well. That harsh truth straying from the original storyline caused Seo Yul so much pain he could barely catch his breath, damn it all. In the original novel, he swept everything with his S rank status window and took first place. Without an S rank status window, are all my stats really just F? Seeing his weak state, Manhwa immediately mocked him, seriously? Where does a guy like that get the nerve to apply to the superhero academy? Prompting Kangam beside him to burst out laughing and join in on picking on the weak. I bet even my grandma could beat him to a pulp. Those cold words quickly crushed what little dignity Seo Yul had left. Damn it! My perfect plan to score full marks on the entrance exam and breeze through my school life is totally ruined. Suddenly, the crowd of students let out a collective gasp. The noise made Seo Yul look over toward the mana measurement platform in confusion. Several students couldn't hold back their amazement upon seeing the layer of magic swirling around Jia. That amount of mana is insane. Hannah slowly announced across the room, Shin Jia mana, B rank. This event clearly delivered a huge shock to the two kids who had been mocking Seo Yul earlier. B rank? But she's only a freshman. B rank means she's basically on par with some of the faculty members, right? Should I try going over to talk to her? Are you crazy? That's the eldest daughter of Myth Group. She lives in a completely different world from us. Come on. Even so, the two of them suddenly froze when they saw Jia wave at Seo Yul. She said nothing, but enthusiastically showed her delight while giving him a silent greeting. Seo Yul stood frozen for a few seconds before frantically backing away, at a total loss for how to react. Stop looking at me with that "did I do well, revered ancestor" face. Just as he predicted, Minho and Kangam put on delinquent scowls and uttered threats. Hey, F-rank guy, what's your relationship with Shin Jia? This unexpected turn of events easily froze Seo Yul's suspended heart. They're misunderstanding everything. However, receiving no answer from him, the two self-righteously overthought like madmen. Whatever, as if there could be anything. She's obviously just laughing at this useless F-rank guy. But it's really weird. How the hell did a guy like this get into the superhero academy? Their conversation ended abruptly due to Jia's sudden appearance. Kangam was the first to snap back to his senses to strike up a conversation. Shin Jia? Great job on the evaluation. Prompting Minho to nod and chime in with a smile. Congrats on getting B rank. Unexpectedly, she merely flashed her cold, terrifying persona. And why exactly are you extending that dirty hand in front of my face? This sudden shift in demeanor left not only the two of them dumbfounded, but also made Seo Yul scream internally. That's the Shin Jia I know. Shocked to his core, Kangam collapsed on the spot, making Minho panic and shake his friend. Hey, wake up. What the hell just hit you? Meanwhile, Seo Yul merely watched Jia's radiant smile directed at him and silently prayed, thank goodness I warned her not to call me revered ancestor in public, otherwise things would be so much worse. Unbothered by the noisy student chatter, Hannah simply took notes before clearing her throat. That concludes the basic stat evaluation. Next up, as requested by the exam proctor, Seo Yul sat anxiously inside a large exam hall, listening to Fabius's booming voice. We will now begin the written theory exam. This test will evaluate the general knowledge you have accumulated prior to entering the superhero academy. No matter how extraordinary your abilities are, they are completely useless without the knowledge to apply them. Therefore, give this exam everything you've got. The students barely absorbed his words, complaining under their breath, superheroes just need to be good at fighting. Why do we have to take a written exam like this? Why is this so ridiculously hard? Still reeling from the shock of his F-rank stats, Seo Yul let out a worried sigh. In the original story, he dominated the entrance ceremony with his S-rank status window and took first place, so this written test was never mentioned. Since my stats are all F, I have to crush this exam at least. The moment Seo Yul put pen to paper, he was so bewildered his eyes nearly popped out at what was happening. Wait, what is this? My hand is moving on its own. The loud rustling of his pen made the students sitting next to him stare in disbelief for a long time. Yet Seo Yul paid no mind to those inquisitive gazes, happily dropping his pen to put on a show. Maybe because I've reread the original novel countless times, I know all the answers. At this rate, I can easily take first place in the whole school. Suddenly, Fabius slammed his hand on the desk right beside him, startling him into constantly glancing over at the next table. That behavior is unacceptable. That is not how a true superhero conducts himself. You are disqualified, leave the exam room immediately. Looking at his unique appearance, Seo Yul's inner detective began analyzing: strange hair, a powerful aura, and that mustache, an upright personality paired with an elegant demeanor. Instructor Fabius. The moment that thought crossed his mind, Seo Yul was snapped awake by the student's weak plea. Huh? Wait, instructor, I didn't. However, Fabius didn't want to hear another word and promptly cast a silence spell on him. Turns out, he wanted to show his absolute fairness to Seo Yul. I apologize for the disruption, please resume your exam. That serious demeanor made Seo Yul awkwardly wave his hand in response. It's fine. I've just finished answering everything anyway. That unexpected answer forced Fabius to narrow his eyes. You're already done? Student Kong Seo Yul. Even if all your physical stats are F rank, looking down on the written exam like this is. However, those following words were swallowed back down when he caught sight of Seo Yul's flawless exam paper. For some reason, Fabius suddenly cleared his throat, startling the surrounding students. Hey, kid. Completely ignoring everyone else's reactions, he questioned Seo Yul sternly. What on earth are you? Though a bit intimidated, Seo Yul tried to stay calm to solve this tricky situation. Stay calm, knowing Instructor Fabius's personality, this method will definitely work. Seo Yul once again thanked his lucky stars for his extraordinary memory. He quickly tapped into his acting skills to respond to Fabius with unusual confidence. I am Kong Seo Yul, the person who will one day become the greatest superhero. Watch me closely and witness just how much I will grow. Exactly as Seo Yul had hoped, Fabius nodded in pleasure and muttered, your spirit is even more impressive than the exam paper you submitted. Very good, I will be watching you. Seo Yul happily walked out of the exam room after the proctor implicitly gave him permission. Just as I thought, I scored a ton of bonus points. Even without an S-rank status window, with the knowledge I have, I can totally pull this off. Standing casually outside the academy courtyard, Seo Yul chuckled under his breath as students gasped in disbelief around him. Hey, the written exam scores and rankings were just posted. Are you kidding me? First place got a perfect score? That's insane. Scoring above 80 already puts you in the top tier. Is this a system error? Seeing the admissions theory exam results posted publicly made Seo Yul's previously ruined heart beat fast with joy. Awesome, first in class for theory. That solidifies my position. Now only the final test remains. Before Seo Yul could turn to leave, Ji-hoon suddenly appeared in the middle of the courtyard, both hands gathering energy. Alright, let's begin. For whatever reason, he released that power to construct 2 rows of translucent display racks, like a magical movie scene. That flashy display made the students marvel. An armory just appeared out of thin air. Ji-hoon casually pulled out various weapons before speaking up. Weapon compatibility test. If you don't have personal gear, you are free to try out different weapons from our academy's armory. Take your time and choose comfortably. While the other students instinctively gravitated toward melee combat gear, Seo Yul silently calculated before taking a gamble. The main character in the original novel used a one-handed sword as his primary weapon, but for me, it definitely has to be. Recalling how he used divine power to handle Fael earlier, he tilted his head slightly. A bow, right? Right at that moment, Jia appeared out of nowhere and whispered into Seo Yul's ear, revered ancestor, making him leap backward in fluster. I told you not to call me that. And stop sneaking up behind me like that. Jia ignored the embarrassment on the young man's face, softly delivering her prepared praise. I saw your exam results, taking first place in the written test. You really are amazing. You intentionally hid your true strength during the physical evaluation, didn't you? Your acting ability is top-notch. Seo Yul awkwardly looked away, letting out an internal sigh. That wasn't acting. As if reading his mind, Jia presented her bow. Here, use this. He glanced at the bow's unique frame, analyzing it out of habit. That flawless shine, sleek elegant curve, and high tensile metal with a mysterious shimmering finish. Seo Yul hurriedly took hold of the item he had longed to see ever since reading Kim Shin's words. Wait, is this the Elysium bow? Isn't this thing ridiculously expensive? His deep knowledge once again amazed Jia. You recognized it instantly. I specifically prepared it just for you, so this time, show off your skills, alright? Just enough so the other students won't dare look down on you anymore. Jia couldn't help but cheer on the person she believed to be her ancestor. You can do it. Her overwhelming attention left Seo Yul flustered as he replied, thanks. After Jia walked away, he happily analyzed Elysium. It's so light, and strangely enough, holding it brings peace to my mind. It feels as if I've spent years using a bow. Wait, my right shoulder is reacting. could this be? Suddenly, a familiar voice snapped Seo Yul out of his daze. Ji-hoon slowly approached him with a stern look. What do you want? As Seo Yul asked in confusion, Choi Ji-hoon's mind was also filled with swirling thoughts. What now? Is this guy here to pick a fight too? He suddenly voiced the suspicion he had held since morning. Why are you hiding your strength? The person who defeated that terrorist back then. It was you, wasn't it? A question filled with certainty left Seo Yul so stunned he didn't know what to say. When Ji-hoon repeated his question, you're the one who eliminated that terrorist. On the outside, Seo Yul raised his voice to argue. What are you talking about? But inside, panic had set in. Damn it. Did he actually see me take down Fael Alo? Unexpectedly, Ji-hoon drew his black iron greatsword. He pushed the blade close to Seo Yul's neck before speaking up irritably. At that time, you swung this sword with one hand. The sword I dropped. The black iron greatsword, a weapon that requires an A-rank strength stat. That direct confrontation rendered Seo Yul completely speechless. Ignoring the students crowding around them, Ji-hoon continued to speak his mind. I was surprised enough seeing you at the entrance ceremony, but did you really get all FS on the capability tests? Stop beating around the bush. What on earth is your true intention? Thinking back, you were holding a bow at that time, so the greatsword isn't your main weapon, right? Ji-ah, seeing her acquaintance being pressed, quickly ran over to rescue Seo Yul, Choi Ji-hoon, but before she could do anything, he annoyedly shoved her aside with his shoulder. Mind your own business, you glitched elf. His snobbish, trashy attitude drove Ji-ah insane, making her scream out loud. What did you just call me? You Susong group scum. Ji-hoon gritted his teeth in anger and hissed back, are you looking for a fight? The tense situation between the two young heirs made the old head Seo Yul unable to hold back a sigh. Choi Ji-hoon, the eldest son of Susong Group, and Shin Ji-ah, the heir of Myth Group, the heirs of South Korea's largest conglomerates, were clashing right in front of his eyes. When Ji-hoon, fueled by dissatisfaction, drew his sword, fine by me, let's brawl right now. His two friends had to rush forward to stop him. Wait, Ji-hoon, stop it. Seo Yul also couldn't help but raise his voice to calm his friend down. Ji-ah, you need to calm down too. Before the tension in the air could escalate further, Chenny's announcement voice startled everyone. Next, Cadet Choi Ji-hoon stepped forward. He left in annoyance, but didn't forget to throw a parting word at Seo Yul. I'll be keeping an eye on you. Ji-ah let out a soft humph, then frowned and muttered, I don't know what his problem is. I really can't stand that guy. As the reason why the two of them argued, he could only laugh awkwardly without daring to say anything else. In the original novel, those two were always like oil and water. Choi Ji-hoon, he's sharper than I thought. If I want to hide my true identity, I need to be more careful. Chenny, seeing the weapon chosen by the cadet, chimed in with a comment. Black iron greatsword, you decided to specialize in something so expensive and heavy? Well, let's see what you can do. The moment the simulation robot charged toward Ji-hoon, he lightly parried the blow with his massive sword, then gathered his strength to kick the simulation robot in the chest. Perhaps fueled by his earlier frustration, Ji-hoon quickly brought his sword down. He swiftly executed a clean slash right through the center of his target's chest. The fight ended so quickly that the surrounding cadets were left in utter bewilderment. He split it in half with just one strike. Choi Ji-hoon is no joke. The Susong Group heir is also a master? Oh man, life is so unfair. Chenny praised this good prospect quite cheerfully, pretty solid destructive power, backed by sturdy physical strength. Even though his practical skill isn't quite worthy of the black iron greatsword yet, Ji-hoon looked at the cadets applauding him and felt nothing but annoyance. Chenny paid no attention to that and continued her job. Next, Cadet Kong Seo Yul. The loud, clear call immediately drew the curious eyes of several cadets to him. Unlike everyone else's highly concerned attitude, Ji-ah lowered her voice to cheer Seo Yul on. It's your turn. Respected ancestor, good luck. Unaccustomed to such attention, he stammered awkwardly in reply, okay. Seeing the young man walk toward her, Chenny asked out of habit, you're Kong Seo Yul, right? Though a bit nervous, he instinctively replied, yes, that's me. Unexpectedly, she delivered a blunt piece of sarcasm. Even though I'm an exam proctor, so you're that guy, solid FS across all stats. Theoretically, getting straight FS is impossible. If you put in even the bare minimum effort, that is. You're taking this way too lightly, aren't you? Not wanting to make a scene, Seo Yul could only close his eyes and swallow his frustration. I have no excuse. I didn't think it was this bad either, but when I picked up the bow earlier, my right shoulder definitely reacted. The feeling was identical to when I received the blessing of the World Tree. If I guessed right, the muscle memory from back then will kick in. That thought made Seo Yul let out an unreadable sigh. He quietly prepared for the exam while Chenny kept babbling merciless words beside him. The default distance is set to 1,000 meters, but I reckon that's impossible for you. Just focus on hitting a target first. Suddenly, she froze upon seeing the bizarre sight in front of her. Defying her conservative assumptions, Chenny was witnessing Seo Yul's flawless bow-drawing stance. He released the bowstring as soon as he locked onto his target. The bow, wrapped in faint layers of divine power, pierced the bullseye with absolute precision. Seeing the clear result allowed Seo Yul to sigh in relief. I knew it. It worked. The blessing of the world tree is completely engraved into my body. While Chenny was still muttering in confusion, how could a kid with F rank in both strength and magic? He drew his bow again, letting another arrow fly straight into the bullseye. Up until this moment, Minho and Kanyam rambled in confusion. What the hell? I thought it hit. But the only arrow on the target is the first one. Did he miss? I knew it. An F-ranker's luck only goes so far. Ji-hoon suddenly appeared behind the two of them, his displeasure blatantly clear. Are you idiots blind? As they instinctively showed their embarrassment, Choi Ji-hoon of Susong Group jerked his chin forward while continuing, look below the target. The second arrow hit the bullseye too. It split the first arrow right down the middle. The plain yet easily missed truth left those two idiots visibly stunned. What? How is that even possible? Even Chenny couldn't help but blurt out her admiration. That's insane. Unlike their somewhat over-the-top reactions, Jia simply expressed her joy with happiness. I knew it. At the same time, Seo Yul paid no mind to the noise behind him and simply drew his bow once more. That arrow ripped through the air and rushed forward. Thanks to Ji-hoon's earlier reminder, everyone quickly squinched their eyes to watch the third arrow strike the tail of the second, splitting it open to lodge into the exact same bullseye. The clear image made everyone unable to hold back their admiration. Splitting the arrow again? Chenny couldn't help grabbing Seo Yul's shoulder to voice her thoughts. New Cadet Kong Seo Yul, I truly apologize, that shot was absolute perfection. It's frustrating that I can only give you an A grade, the maximum score possible for weapon compatibility. As an archery instructor, it's been a long time since my heart pounded like this. Chenny's excessive excitement made Seo Yul at a loss for how to react. Was there a character like this in the original novel? She seems pretty dangerous. Either way, there's no doubt about it. That power has settled into my right shoulder. Even without an S-rank status window, I can still pull things off. Meanwhile, Jia, hearing the noisy comments from the surrounding cadets, he's an F rank, but his archery compatibility is an A? He feels like a hidden master. So cool. Plus, his face is definitely S rank. She pulled an ominously gloomy face. This won't do. If too much attention gets drawn to my respected ancestor, who knows how much time passed, but the cadets standing in the hall listened to Jinho's presentation, and with that, the evaluation phase has concluded. Everyone did a fantastic job, bringing our entrance ceremony to a wonderful close. The cadets were assigned private rooms in the academy. The moment Seo Yul opened his room door, he couldn't help marveling at the academy's generosity. I get this whole room to myself? This place is way better than my old digs. It even has a bathtub. Tonight, a quick soak in hot water and I'll sleep like a baby. At the same time, Jinho was busy knocking on the academy director's office door. As soon as the director called for him to enter, he slowly opened the door, stepped inside, and spoke. Director, I have a matter to report. The director enthusiastically waved to welcome his right-hand man. Thank you for your hard work, Instructor Pai Jinho. I take it this is regarding the new cadets? As Jinho cleared his throat to clarify, this report concerns a specific cadet named Kong Seo Yul. The familiar name made the director burst into laughter immediately. That kid who got straight FS on his aptitude tests? Yet he scored a perfect score on the written exam. And he's also the cadet who scored an A in the weapon compatibility test with glowing praise. Am I correct? Jinho nodded in confirmation. Yes, that is correct. The director excitedly pushed further. I wonder if he's the type who likes to hide his true stats. Nailed it. Is he playing the pig to eat the tiger trope? Unexpectedly, Jinho shot it down instantly without a second thought. That's not the case. On the contrary, his physical stamina is definitely below F rank. When he pulled the bowstring, his arms suffered severe muscle spasms. When the director expressed his doubt, but what if he was just pretending? Jinho frowned and spoke sternly. Director, you know full well what my ability is. The director looked at his stern demeanor for a moment before speaking. I see. In that case, Instructor Pai Jinho, what do you think of that cadet? As if he had anticipated this question, Jinho quickly delivered his prepared explanation. Kang Seo-yeol has abnormally low stats, but possesses overwhelmingly exceptional talent in archery. He is at least a divine archer, and in fact, it's likely he possesses an even higher tier trait, Weapon Master. This rather unusual evaluation made the director chuckle out loud. He leisurely issued an order to his subordinate, fascinating. Instructor Pai Jinho, keep a close eye on Cadet Kang Seo-yeol from now on. Finally hearing what he wanted to hear, Jinho gave a satisfied nod of assurance. Yes, that is precisely what I came to discuss. I will put Cadet Kang Seo-yeol on the special observation list. Meanwhile, our guy Seo-yeol didn't sense any major trouble coming and was simply enjoying this miraculous life. In the Intro to Heroics class, Hannah, who was chosen to teach, asked a gentle question. The main duties of a hero can be divided into 3 major categories. Which cadet can tell me what they are? She scanned the cadets. When Jia raised her hand, Hannah gently invited her to speak. Cadet Shin Jia came from a wealthy family deeply connected with heroes. She had more than enough knowledge to answer the question concisely yet thoroughly. 1. Rescuing civilians. 2. Clearing dungeons and defending territories. 3. Eliminating monsters and villains. Hannah nodded in agreement, validating the answer with a brief response. Spot on. Today, we'll be focusing on villains. You all know about the recent terrorist attack at the World Tree Festival, right? The mastermind behind it was Fael Alo. His abilities are still being analyzed, but word has it he even suppressed S-rank heroes. If an anonymous hero hadn't stopped him, the casualties likely would have escalated into a national disaster. Out of habit, Seo-yeol glanced at Ji-hoon, only to realize Ji-hoon had been watching him all along. However, Ji-hoon said nothing and simply turned his face back forward as if nothing had happened. Seo-yeol also saw Jia raising her hand with a cheerful look toward him, making him sigh inwardly. Either way, at this rate, I can probably manage academy life just fine. Suddenly, Hannah raised her voice so all the cadets would remember her words. This academy has only one goal: to ensure that no matter what monsters or villains you face, you will return victorious. So, trust your instructors and follow our guidance. As Seo-yeol closed his eyes, nodding and muttering in his mind, knowing what's coming makes me weirdly excited. Kanyam's loud voice rang out, startling everyone. Fael Alo, huh? I should have been at the World Tree Square back then. I would have chopped that bastard's head right off. Even though Minho knew his friend was bragging at the wrong time, he still laughed along. Choi Kang-im is talking big again. That conversation made Seo-yeol freeze as he suddenly made a new discovery. Wait a second, his real name is Choi Kang-im. While those two bastards were still talking nonsense, hey, you heard the instructor say we need to trust and follow her, right? Does that mean I can follow her home tonight? You freak! Seo-yeol quietly broke into a cold sweat as he recalled old details read from Kim Shin's book. Speaking of what's coming, Choi Kang-im, that bastard is going to cause a bloodbath at the academy. Who knows how much time passed before the cadets attended Jinho's class again. As you all know, F is the lowest rank. Even within F rank, stats are subdivided from 1 to 99. Naturally, there can be a massive gap even within the same rank, and you must accumulate 99 points before advancing to the next rank. Therefore, the gap between F rank and S rank is like night and day. While Jinho was still explaining the basics, Seo-yeol secretly glanced behind him at the idiot sleeping in heroics class. Choi Kang-im. In the original storyline, 1 week after the opening ceremony, countless cadets fell under his blade. To be precise, it was the work of a villain named Doppelganger, who killed Choi Kang-im and stole his appearance. Seo-yeol's broad back began to break out in cold sweat as his mind recalled that cold-blooded killer. Doppelganger is an extremely despicable villain behind the initial wave of indiscriminate cadet assassinations. Since I know the truth, I might be able to prevent that horrific tragedy. So what should I do? First, I need to approach Choi Kang-im and warn him. Suddenly, Jinho's booming voice snapped him out of his chaotic mess of thoughts. Cadet Kang Seo-yeol. It seems you have no intention of paying attention in class. While he was still dumbfounded, wondering inwardly, Instructor Pai Jinho, why do you keep targeting me? Jinho continued to mock him in front of the whole class. Is this your way of saying you scored a perfect mark on the written theory exam? Seo-yeol was rendered speechless, unable to reply. I really can't hide anything from him. Jinho quickly changed the subject to let him speak. Then answer me this. To our top student, stats, skills, and traits, besides those 3 factors, there is another crucial element that affects rankings. What is it? When Seo-yeol opened his mouth to reply slowly, that would be items. For some reason, an indescribable coldness suddenly emanated from his body. The quick way Seo Yul answered prompted Jinho to extend the conversation. Was that question too basic? If so, here is Sword Enchantment, an S-rank single sword used by the renowned active S-rank hero Kong Minsu. It's a weapon with terrifying effects. Of course, its equipment requirements are equally terrifying. Jinho quickly turned off the 3D image and cleared his throat to address Seo Yul. Here is your question. If a B-rank hero using this sword fights an S-rank hero using a B-rank iron sword, who wins? Before the room could return to silence, Ji-hoon spoke up nonchalantly. Obviously the S-rank hero. A powerful item can't bridge a 2-rank difference in stats. Although the other cadets agreed with the answer, Jinho wasn't particularly pleased and asked cold-facedly, "Cadet Choi Ji-hoon, did I ask you?" The unexpected reaction turned Ji-hoon's face pale. Jinho casually calling him out in front of the class made him so embarrassed he couldn't even talk back, despite replying with commendable confidence. Afterwards, Jinho paid no mind to that and focused solely on pressing Seo Yul. "Cadet Kong Seo Yul, do you agree with Cadet Choi Ji-hoon's answer?" He ignored all the intense gazes around him and spoke up in response. "I agree to a certain extent, but I don't believe the S-rank hero is guaranteed to win." Kang Im, who had been awake since smelling trouble, showed his presence with an arrogant laugh. A B-rank hero beating an S-rank? That's the kind of delusional nonsense only an all-F stat loser would come up with. Minho beside him also snickered. Seriously ridiculous. Their obnoxious behavior visibly soured Seo Yul's calm mood. These bastards, seriously. Jinho heard those words clearly too, but didn't want to waste words on nonsense, so he simply directed everyone back to the topic. "Why do you think so?" Seo Yul quickly presented his thorough analysis for the whole class to hear. Of course, the gap in stat ranks isn't easily overcome. But the spec difference between a B-rank item and an S-rank item is also astronomical. A B-rank weapon could completely shatter from a light clash with an S-rank weapon. That would leave the S-rank hero defenseless, creating an opening for the B-rank hero to win. Jinho slowly nodded in praise, an insightful answer worthy of the top student title. You're right. A battle is influenced by countless other variables, and a hero must know how to properly utilize every resource at their disposal. Therefore, never put blind faith in your stats alone. Understood? Rarely, the entire class answered in unison, "Understood, sir." The theoretical lesson quickly ended following the crisp chime of the bell. Seo Yul walked aimlessly down the hallway, letting his thoughts wander. Skills, traits, talents, items, this world is full of countless abilities. And now that I no longer have the S-rank status window that could overwhelm them all, it seems I've acquired a completely different power. Most likely, Seo Yul recalled the moment he was pulled into that weird light earlier. That memory instantly brought him enlightenment. System error. Thanks to it, I can bypass status window equipment requirements and use any item, which means my top priority right now is... Seo Yul's train of thought suddenly came to a halt when he saw the two class idiots in front of him. Seo Yul completely ignored Minho, focusing on the loud, bedhead guy, Choi Kong Im. Right, first I need to warn him about the doppelganger incident. For some reason, Seo Yul actively walked up to him. Choi Kong Im casually spat out sarcastic words. "Look who's here. Isn't it the straight F nerd?" Completely ignoring his lack of manners, Seo Yul spoke up with a tense tone. "I have something important to tell you." However, when Kong Im showed aggressive hostility like a hoodlum, "What?" Seo Yul opened his mouth stammeringly. "Whether out of fear or something else, well, in a week, you'll be brutally slaughtered by a villain named Doppelganger, and countless cadets will die at the hands of someone wearing your face." Truth was, that line was just a test run in Seo Yul's head, but if I say that, how on earth do I explain my source? I need to phrase it a bit more indirectly. While Kong Im was gradually losing patience, "What's your problem?" Minho suddenly thought of something and turned pale. "Don't tell me this bastard." Seo Yul suddenly pointed at Kong Im and offered a brief warning. "Don't go to the casino this weekend." He quickly swallowed his remaining explanation. "The doppelganger targeting you will assassinate you there." Meanwhile, Minho let out a relieved sigh. "You crazy bastard, I thought you were about to confess to me or something." But Kong Im responded to the kindness with unusual hostility. "Are you threatening to report my gambling to the academy? You son of a bitch." Seeing his collar grabbed, Seo Yul tried to explain. "No, that's not what I meant." But before he could get a proper word out, Kong Im went on a tirade. "How do you know I go to casinos? Did you run a background check on me? Ha? I hated you from the start. You hear me? When I heard you got a perfect score on the written exam, I checked to see if you were some rich kid who bribed his way in, but found nothing. A piece of trash with no family background, no talent, nothing at all. That lengthy rant distracted Seo Yul for a few seconds. Look who's talking about running background checks. Before being snapped back by the guy's noise, just because you're a bit handsome and decent at archery, you think you can act all high and mighty around Shin Jia? I want to hold hands and hang out with Shin Jia too. Who knew how cursed Kongyam's mouth was, but Jia suddenly appeared right at the scene. That presence. She gently lifted Kongyam's collar to knock him out in a single blow. Why would any girl want to hold hands and hang out with a guy who doesn't even know how to brush his teeth properly? Jia's swift action left the other two boys at the scene paralyzed with fear. While Minho was still mouth agape, trying to choke out the words stuck in his throat, Jia gently spoke to Seo Yul. Are you okay, dear ancestor? Still traumatized, he could only smirk and quietly whisper, do I look like I'm okay? Choi Kongnam was utterly ruined both physically and mentally. Currently lying in the hospital, he pitifully mumbled his beloved's name. Seeing her continue to go to school as if nothing had happened, Seo Yul thought in panic. Even so, Shin Jia wasn't disciplined or anything. Is this the power of the myth group's heir? It's honestly a bit terrifying. However, he still couldn't feel happy, frowning as he calculated every possibility. In the end, with Choi Kongyam hospitalized, the incident where he gets murdered by the doppelganger at the casino has been prevented. The script has changed. That reality naturally gave Seo Yul a massive headache. As the future became increasingly vague, he felt even more tense about the upcoming bloody event. But would the doppelganger really give up just because of that? Wouldn't it just find another victim at the casino to kill? Someone has to stop it. And the only person who can do that is... Suddenly, Jinho's challenging voice made him jump. Kang Seo Yul, your sparring opponent is Choi Ji-hoon. Everyone has checked their opponents, right? Then let's move to the training field now. Seo Yul anxiously looked at Ji-hoon's eyes, which resembled a debt collector preparing to demand money, and screamed inwardly, out of all people, why him? There's absolutely no way I can beat Choi Ji-hoon. At this point, his average stats are insane. Especially his defense at B and strength at A. With my stats, even if I shoot tens or hundreds of arrows, I probably couldn't inflict a single fatal wound on him. Because of that, this match in front of everyone is going to be a miserable defeat for me. The cadets sitting in the stands couldn't help but chatter noisily. Choi Ji-hoon got an easy win. I wish I was paired with an all-F rank guy like that too. How many seconds will this match last? Seeing Seo Yul sighing gloomily, Jinho called out to him immediately, Cadet Kang Seo Yul. He instinctively asked in confusion, Instructor Pai Jinho. Under Seo Yul's puzzled gaze, he merely handed over a short blade gently. Take this. Even archers should always carry a dagger like this for close-quarters combat. Little did Jinho know that he was being analyzed by Seo Yul through the eyes of an outsider reader, quiet personality, eyes that see through the truth. Is this cold as a rock man actually caring about me? That thought moved him as he reached out to accept it. Thank you, teacher. Knowing he couldn't do anything more, Jinho could only clear his throat and speak to the room system. Then we will begin the practice match immediately. Please step into the magic circle. Safety settings have been activated, so you won't get injured while fighting inside. Of course, that doesn't mean it won't hurt, because your senses, including the sensation of pain, will still be felt in the most realistic way. Tense atmosphere surged throughout the entire space, allowing Jinho to speak sternly. The match begins now. Seo Yul quietly closed his eyes to focus his power. His archery strength was obtained through a glitch in the world tree. Meanwhile, Jinho was busy counting down to heighten the suspense in the room. 3, 2, 1. The final count made Seo Yul open his eyes nervously while his brain was still racing. My best tactic in this situation is... The moment Jinho blurted out start, he hurriedly leaped backward to create a safe distance. As Seo Yul drew his bow, he let his unfinished thought run wild. Keep as much distance as possible and suppress him from afar. Unfortunately, the moment he raised his bow to shoot, Seo Yul was shocked to realize his opponent had already run right up to him. Without saying a word, Ji-hoon swiped his bow away. Looking at Seo Yul's panicked expression, he asked in confusion, this reaction speed. Completely ignoring the clock that was still ticking, Ji-hoon slowly voiced his thoughts. Are you really in F rank? The fact that Seo Yul couldn't give a clear answer made Ji-hoon speak with slight disappointment. As I thought, was I just mistaken back then? At the same time, Seo Yul was trying to stop his body from trembling. To be defeated so helplessly like this? So this is the gap in stats. After arriving at his own conclusion, Ji-hoon raised the giant sword behind his back. Sorry about that, I won't humiliate you any further. Seeing him prepare for the decisive blow, the cadets in the stands gossiped nastily. How boring, a guy like that is supposed to be a superhuman. Ended in a flash. If it were me, I'd drop out from sheer embarrassment. Those noises caused Seo Yul's mindset to shift rapidly. Resentment welled up inside me. That's right. It's not like I can die in here anyway, right? Seo Yul surreptitiously pulled out the small dagger Jinho gave him earlier. Let's just take a gamble and see. As he resolutely raised his knife to risk it all, Seo Yul's body once again fell into the pure white space of the spirits. He stared blankly at the white expanse around him, his brain working slowly. What is this? Did everything disappear? This feeling is identical to when I communed with the world tree. The fragrance of the forest and a warm breeze envelop my entire body. It's as if something is talking to me. The sound Seo Yul was hearing was the melodious voice of the spirit he had met before. O bearer of the world tree's blessing, entrust your body to the path of the wind. Those final words quickly enlightened Seo Yul. The path of the wind? I can see it. Malice is rushing over. Seo Yul looked in confusion at two unusual surges of energy covering his dagger. And this is the trajectory to slice through that wave of malice. Following the trajectory drawn by the path of the wind, and trusting my body, Seo Yul gritted his teeth and swung his dagger to block that evil aura. That bright red energy snapped in half, allowing him to return to reality. Seo Yul looked bewilderedly at Ji-hoon's stunned expression. Seeing the two opponents frozen in place made the cadets burst into noisy chatter. What was that move just now? He blocked a dark iron broadsword with just a dagger? On top of that, someone with F-rank strength blocked an attack from someone with A-rank strength. Holy crap, is he really in F-rank? Ji-ah, of course, remained loyal in showing her admiration for Seo Yul. The ancestors have manifested. However, Ji-hoon felt angered by that successful block. This kid. Seo Yul didn't notice his opponent's unusual emotion, preoccupied with his own stunned thoughts. How did I just pull that off? There's no time to hesitate. Seo Yul once again observed his opponent's malice, attempting to save himself with desperate defensive knife swings. However, he could clearly feel exhaustion creeping into his body. With my strength, blocking that hit was already my absolute limit. If it weren't for the magic circle, my hands would have definitely been torn to shreds. Seo Yul was forced to grit his teeth and block Ji-hoon's rushed attack. The fact that he kept raining relentless blows without end gave Jinho a chance to observe Seo Yul even more. Kong Seo Yul, is this really your limit? Suddenly, with frustration boiling over, Ji-hoon couldn't help but roar, get out of the way. Just as Seo Yul was about to block again, he suddenly felt something strange inside his body. For some unknown reason, divine power gushed out from within him. This isn't a fierce, rushing wind, it's a breeze spreading outward from my own body. I will ride this wind. Seo Yul gritted his teeth and charged straight at his opponent. Before Ji-hoon could react, he quickly thrust straight at his opponent's stomach. The lightning-fast attack not only stunned him, but even the cadets sitting high up in the stands were rendered speechless. Yet Seo Yul didn't care about any of that, only busy muttering comments to himself. As expected of my strength, I can't even pierce his armor. Taking advantage of his opponent being dazed, Ji-hoon swung his leg and kicked Seo Yul. Flying out of the system's barrier allowed Jinho to deliver the final call. Match over. Winner, Choi Ji-hoon. That result served as a wake-up call for the cadets. Knew it. How could an all-F rank guy stand a chance? But still, Kong Seo Yul held out really well. Is he really in all-F rank? Standing outside watching the simulated battle, Hannah couldn't help but speak up. Isn't Cadet Kong Seo Yul clearly an archery specialist? Yet his dagger technique is at that level too. I can't help thinking he's actually hiding his stats. Surprisingly, Jinho, known for his cold demeanor, offered an explanation. That's not it. His muscle movements and reaction speed are entirely at an F-rank level. His stats are at a pathetic level. When Hannah raised her eyebrows in confusion, if you say so, Jinho gently voiced his thought. There's only one thing that can explain this situation. Kong Seo Yul possesses an unmeasurable trait. If his average stats reached at least C rank, could he make it into the world's top 100? Even reaching the top 10 would be possible. An unknown amount of time passed as Seo Yul gloomily chewed his food in the cafeteria. It was supposed to be a refreshing weekend morning. The dining hall was as empty as the last bit of energy left in me. Everyone must have gone out for the weekend. Maybe I pushed myself a bit too hard during yesterday's sparring with Choi Ji-hoon, which is why my body is aching all over like this. Suddenly, Seo Yul's mood visibly plummeted. Right now, my mind is completely consumed by thoughts of the doppelganger. Finding a way to stop that guy is way more complicated than I thought. Even if I know the future, thinking I can perfectly control everything is pure arrogance. All I can do now is. His next thoughts quickly dissolved when Seo Yul heard Jia's familiar, enthusiastic voice. Dear ancestor, is something troubling you? Her sudden appearance startled him into an instinctive mutter. Shin Jia, I told you not to call me that. Jia calmly replied as she sat down right next to him. What's the harm? Besides, it's just the two of us here right now anyway. As Seo Yul fumbled for words because he had never been in a situation like this, she suddenly blurted out, I watched your sparring match with Choi Ji-hoon yesterday too. Leaving him frozen in thought, right, Shin Jia took first place in the sparring rounds, didn't she? Seo Yul couldn't help letting out a sigh. I looked pretty pathetic, didn't I? Unexpectedly, she dropped a reply outside his script. On the contrary, you were amazing. Even though you held back to hide the spirit's power, you still managed to block all of Choi Ji-hoon's attacks. Seo Yul awkwardly revealed the truth. That's not it. I wasn't intentionally holding back to hide some spirit power. Yet she completely misread his intent and cut him off immediately. Still, please be careful. If the other students find out about the ancestors' power, they'll definitely start keeping an eye on you. Realizing she misspoke, Jia quickly covered her mouth, but Seo Yul, driven by curiosity, promptly probed her. By the way, what were you about to say regarding the others? Jia rarely showed hesitation when speaking to him. It's nothing. Either way, please hide your power carefully from now on. Those final words made Seo Yul frown and mutter, my power? A train of thought quickly crossed his mind. Due to a system error arising from having no status window, I can freely equip various items without worrying about requirements. Especially this ability. Whenever I equip an artifact of any race, that race's special trait fuses into my body, but it seems to have a time limit. When I held the silence of the forest, I was kicked out after just 1 minute. Can this even be called a usable power at this point? To get those traits, I need artifacts. But they're so rare they're almost impossible to find. Seeing Seo Yul's sigh repeatedly made Jia express her worry. Dear ancestor, when you have things troubling you, please don't try to shoulder everything alone. I know your power is vast, ancestor, but wouldn't it be better to try borrowing power from those around you sometimes? Hearing this phrase for the first time, Seo Yul asked back in slight confusion, borrow power from others? As Jia eagerly voiced her true feelings, that's right. I'm sure there's someone willing to become your strength. Like me, for example. Seo Yul suddenly shouted out loud, that's it. He didn't forget to pat Jia on the head before speaking gently. Thanks a lot. I figured out what I need to do. Thank you, I'll take my leave now. Have a great day. Seo Yul hurriedly left, leaving Jia sitting there alone in a daze. An unknown amount of time passed. At the memorial area for the departed during the World Tree Festival, a cenotaph was left with all kinds of items by visitors expressing their grief. Among those people was Yua, gently placing a white flower down for her fallen comrades. The tragic deaths of the heroes naturally left her heart feeling hollow. Yua sadly stared at the monument ahead, unable to shed tears of grief because her current position wouldn't allow it. Right at that moment, she suddenly saw Seo Yul place a memorial flower down, to offer his condolences solemnly, to all members of the Baihan Guild, may you rest in peace in the afterworld. To think all 9 of them lost their lives to terrorists, what a tragic event. Just as Yua was about to leave, she was stopped in her tracks by Seo Yul's considerate words. Just last week we lost 4 people, and now something like this happens again. Without a second of hesitation, she spoke up to him. Hey, what did you just say? Seo Yul stared blankly at her for a moment, then stood straight up and talked as if meeting an old close friend he hadn't seen in a long time. Looking up close, you're Yua, the guild leader of Baihan. I didn't expect to run into you here. While he was busy analyzing her appearance and elegant air, silver hair, and deep grief for her fallen comrades, Yua cleared her throat and spoke in a voice no different from the Grim Reaper. Hey, where did you get that information from? That demonic expression clearly scared Seo Yul to the point of breaking into a cold sweat. This is terrifying, let's calm down first. However, he still tried to take a breath to regain his composure so he could deliver a line that couldn't be more suspicious. Coincidentally, I happen to know the culprit behind this, and I will also help you catch that perpetrator. Yua wasn't in a rational state of mind, so she couldn't help yelling out, you look like a student from the Superhuman Academy, don't you? But you better realize who you're messing with. I'm Yua, the guild leader of Baihan. Can you handle the consequences of this? Having anticipated this question, Seo Yul merely fumbled his response. Yes, I figured you wouldn't believe me. Then how about this? The person who murdered the members of the Baihan Guild last week. That's right, He's the villain known as Doppelganger. The moment that name dropped from his mouth, Yua froze solid for a few seconds. She unintentionally let her confusion show. How do you know that name? You're not just some ordinary student, are you? Right as Seo Yul calmly spoke up. Is this enough for you to believe me now? Yua charged forward in an instant, pressing her dagger right against his throat. He screamed in total panic, "Help me!" She didn't care one bit about his weak-willed pathetic act, merely clearing her throat to demand, "Who the hell are you?" Even when Seo Yul answered politely while trembling, "I told you, I'm just here to help you." Yua hissed back almost instantly with frustration, "So you approached me on purpose." Seo Yul was nervously making calculations on the down low. This is Yua's signature skill from the original novel object creation using mana. She can manifest a weapon in the blink of an eye. It was something that felt fishy to Yua, prompting her to press the dagger even closer against his flesh. "What's your real goal here?" The terror of being sent to an early grave forced Seo Yul to shout at the top of his lungs until his voice cracked, "I really just want to catch Doppelganger. If we don't stop him, he'll attack the Superhuman Academy next week and countless people are going to die." Are you really going to let a tragedy like last week's happen all over again? Please believe me. Right now, this is literally all I can tell you. If everything goes according to my plan, we'll definitely catch Doppelganger. Yua didn't bother to reply, quietly staring over toward the memorial instead. She frowned, looking at the sorrowful white flowers she had just set down. A war waged inside Yua's mind for a long moment before she finally lowered her dagger and replied, "Your plan, let's hear it." That exact action made Seo Yul feel happier than ever. It worked. He slowly whispered to Yua, "My plan starts at 8 p.m. tonight." Time flew by quickly, reaching the crucial moment. Seo Yul casually stepped into a space overflowing with greedy devils. The continuous clacking of slot machines echoed through the room, blending together with the distinct sounds of joy and despair from the guests at the gambling tables. Seo Yul tried his best to ignore the curious glances around him so he could focus on the plan he had discussed with Yua earlier. The location was right here at the casino. He anxiously scanned his eyes deep into the interior of the casino. Half of the nervous tension inside Seo Yul drained away instantly when he spotted Yua's figure off in the distance. She gave him a barely noticeable nod while her mind was racing like crazy. Who on earth is that guy? I can't believe he actually showed up and is taking action on his own without asking for a single cent in return. All of a sudden, the casino owner happily ran out to greet his new guest, if it isn't Lady Yua, the president of our Baihan Guild. While she gave a confused response back, he pretended not to hear a word of it and carried on with his usual welcoming script. "Thank you so much for coming to support our business. Allow me to show you to the VIP room." Yua couldn't really refuse, so she silently knit her brows together and said to Seo Yul, "I'll be keeping a very close eye on you, Kong Seo Yul." At the same time, he tried his best to ignore the chills running down his spine, rubbing his hands together as he muttered, "So, shall we get started then? Let's go hunt down this serial killer Doppelganger." Seo Yul quickly made his way deeper into the casino, ignoring the clouds of cigarette smoke blowing in his direction. Tracking down Doppelganger was no small task. He calmly exchanged his cash for chips to prepare for setting up his trap. The original web novel had already explained how to identify him. Seo Yul looked down at the colorful pile of chips in his hands and couldn't help but let out a soft sigh. What's going to happen next is that I'll take advantage of the fact that he's sneaking into the Superhuman Academy by impersonating Choi Kang-im, and then I'll lure him into approaching me. "You're just another student like him instead of Choi Kang-im." Seo Yul casually took a random seat at a nearby poker table. Put simply, he quietly scanned everyone gathered around the table with his eyes. "I'll make myself the bait." A sudden surge of confidence made Seo Yul unable to hold back a smile. "Come get some, Doppelganger." Who knows how much time passed, but the girls standing around watching couldn't help but gush out loud, "Oh my gosh, how are you so good at this?" Hearing that question, Seo Yul looked at the massive pile of chips he had won in utter confusion. He looked over at his opponent who was frustratingly pulling his hair out. "Damn it, my money." He couldn't help but entertain an unusual thought. Could I actually be a natural at this? The old guy, heartbroken over losing all his hard-earned cash, couldn't hold back from yelling out loud, "Aren't you just a trainee student? Act like a proper student and go study instead of doing trashy stuff like gambling." Seo Yul gave an embarrassed, awkward laugh while his brain kept processing private thoughts. Who would have thought that little bit of money I borrowed from Yua would multiply this much? But hey, this works out great. Now that I've drawn this much attention, Doppelganger must have his eyes on me by now. Before the dealer could go ahead with the next round of business, one of the guests hurriedly grabbed Seo Yul's hand. "Hold on a second, kid. You're a hero, you're not using your skills to cheat us, are you? Experiencing this kind of situation for the first time made him break out in cold sweat. I didn't do anything like that. His mind was also freaking out. What? Like I even could do something like that? Yet the guy refused to drop it, continuing to yell hysterically. What do you mean by that? What do you mean you didn't do it, kid? Watching a situation that should have been simple turn into such a hot mess made Co Yell super annoyed. Damn it, why is he doing this? Right at that exact moment, Doppelganger, who was disguised as a security guard, walked up and addressed him. Sir, please step this way with me for a moment. Even though the casino hadn't reached any official conclusion, seeing his tough rival get dragged away made the other guy babble happily. Serves you right. He didn't hesitate to flash a sneering smile at him, completely unbothered by how annoyed the people around him were feeling. Awesome. A short while later, Co Yell trudged along behind the large, burly guy who looked like a security guard. As he let out a frustrated, desperate sigh, damn it, the plan is totally ruined. Doppelganger suddenly stopped in his tracks and spoke up to Co Yell. Sir, heroes and trainees normally use a separate lounge. Did you not know that? The moment Co Yell heard those words, a light bulb went off in his head instantly. He blurted out without even taking a second to think it over. You're Doppelganger, aren't you? While Doppelganger was still raising an eyebrow, pretending to be utterly confused. Excuse me? Co Yell made up his mind to commit to his slick, smirking act all the way. You're pretty calm, aren't you? No wonder skills couldn't detect you. Co Yell deliberately lowered his voice so the other guy could take in his words crystal clear. But you can't fool me. The word normally means you've turned a blind eye to guests like me coming through here before, doesn't it? Weren't you watching the other students earlier? Besides, as casino security, you shouldn't care what skills I use or how I use them. But most importantly, what made me totally sure was the way your eyes stayed glued onto me the entire time. To steal someone's appearance, you have to stare at their face for a full minute and 40 seconds, don't you? Doppelganger slowly took off his sunglasses, letting a face that looked no different from a demonic clown show through. Who are you? The other guy's insane smile naturally made Co Yell freeze up, cold sweat pooling on his back. The whole atmosphere had completely shifted, no mistake about it. This guy was definitely Doppelganger. He felt a surge of nervous tension rising inside him so intensely that he had to hard swallow his own spit. Here comes the turning point. Yet just a second later, Co Yell managed to utter the secret passkey he had learned back when he was reading Kim Shin's web novel, LPC Nendoma. While Doppelganger was still standing there stunned, unable to bark out a single word, Co Yell adopted Kong Im's slick, arrogant way of talking to negotiate with him. I've been waiting forever for you to approach me. I have a message from the boss I need to pass along to you. He anxiously watched Doppelganger's silent face. Please take the bait, man. Unexpectedly, just a second later, the guy shook his head and let out a long sigh. I knew it. I thought it was strange the moment you saw right through my identity with just one line. Turns out we're in the same boat after all, huh? The guy's behavior, which felt like someone with multiple personalities, made Co Yell celebrate like fireworks were going off in his heart. It worked. But on the outside, he just raised an eyebrow and babbled along like a typical spoiled rich brat. I knew it. Doppelganger burst into a cheerful laugh and praised him. Not bad, kid. Allow me to show you to that room. Seeing that his opponent had lowered his guard made Co Yell feel thrilled beyond belief. Did I just reel in a massive fish? A long while later, still inside that massive casino, Doppelganger casually led him into a spacious room fully equipped with all kinds of amenities. He looked at Co Yell in confusion after their sudden conversation out in the hallway earlier. Didn't you say the boss was waiting? Co Yell put on a bewildered, confused face for him. I don't know, I'm just following orders. When Doppelganger voiced his inner thoughts, looks like you were assigned the mission to infiltrate the academy, huh? His face went blank, immediately thinking to himself, so that's what he thinks. Doppelganger sat down on a chair, crossing his legs casually as if he were in his own living room. Is he planning to give me a new assignment? Hey, what do you think the boss wants me to do next? Co Yell forced an awkward smile and replied just to brush it off. Who knows? He's probably got it all figured out. Meanwhile, his brain couldn't stop cursing the guy out. This Doppelganger guy talks way too much. Co Yell had no choice but to stand there in silence listening to his rambling nonsense. I'm so jealous, massacring those trainee students sounds like a blast. I hope he hands me another fun job. Just like last week, it was such a blast ripping those Baihan guild members limb from limb. Seems like people kept thinking those guys were immortal heroes or something. But when I disguised myself as that guild president they worshipped so much and approached them, they died without even getting the chance to open their mouths. Doppelganger didn't think he had done anything wrong at all, so he just cackled out loud. Which means up until their final moments, those idiots actually thought they were being killed by their own guild president. Seo Yul was terrified he'd have to listen to more earth-shattering secrets, so he couldn't help but sigh and mutter, "Sorry, but can we stop right here?" That unusual attitude threw Doppelganger off completely. Just as he let out a confused remark, "Stop what?" Yua suddenly materialized right behind Doppelganger's back. Overwhelming wave of hatred made her slash at his arm without wasting a single breath on unnecessary words. Doppelganger clutched his wound in agonizing pain, his eyes still locked onto the person who had just appeared in the room. "My arm." "Yua, why the hell are you here?" Unfortunately, she was completely consumed by vengeance, only slowly laying out her plan. "I'm going to kill you 4 times over. To make you pay with your life for the guild members you murdered." Sensing that the Grim Reaper had arrived, Doppelganger panicked and screamed hysterically at Seo Yul. "You bastard! You fucking set me up? How the hell do you know the passcode of the Truth Seekers?" He casually glanced off to the side and replied with a stone-cold, nonchalant expression, "I have no idea what you're talking about." His rapid-fire betrayal left Doppelganger completely speechless and choking on his words. The guy hurriedly regenerated a brand new arm, so he could lunge straight at Seo Yul with absolute, surging confidence. "I'll kill you." A second ago, Seo Yul was still trembling as he spoke up, "No way." A second later, he flashed the most punchable smirk imaginable to taunt him. "There's no way in hell I'd ever say something like that." The reason for that confidence was that Seo Yul knew Yua wouldn't let their enemy off easy, instantly stabbing right into Doppelganger's thigh. Watching the guy collapse weakly onto the floor, Seo Yul immediately chimed in with mocking sarcasm, "Your specialty is assassination, right? In reality, you don't have any real close combat skills at all, do you? Your opponent happens to be one of the strongest superhumans in Korea. It hurts so bad." It was only at this exact moment that Doppelganger finally lost his mind in panic, desperately crying out for mercy, "Please, spare my life." Hearing those words, Yua raised an eyebrow, her face full of sheer disgust. "Spare your life? Not a chance. You still have to die 3 more times. I'm not letting you off that easily." The atmosphere suddenly turning this intense forced Seo Yul to quickly search for an exit strategy. "Alright then, I'll be taking my leave now. You two have fun." Unfortunately, Yua hurled the dagger in her hand straight at the door, blocking his escape route. She then spoke up slowly under Seo Yul's bewildered gaze, "You said you'd bring Doppelganger here if I hid inside this room. I didn't expect you to actually pull it off. I knew right from the start you weren't an ordinary student, but you knowing about the existence of the Truth Seekers changes things completely. Who on earth are you?" A terrifying, monstrous bloodlust oozed out of Yua's body, making Seo Yul so frightened he instinctively swallowed a lump of spit. Seo Yul quickly shook off his panic, letting anger take over whatever logic was left in his head. He went quiet for a few seconds before firing back at her in a voice that couldn't possibly be any colder. "Please don't ask me anything else about who I am. It's thanks to me that you caught Doppelganger in the first place, isn't it? The only thing I can state for certain is that I don't belong to the Truth Seekers. Please believe me." His genuine demeanor left Yua completely stunned. However, her staying dead silent forced Seo Yul to grit his teeth and voice his inner thoughts out loud. "I'm not going to run away. So why don't we resolve the immediate problem right in front of us first? I'll wait outside." He casually touched the doorknob, glancing over at Yua to gauge her reaction. Seo Yul immediately seized the once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to slip away from the scene, leaving her all alone with the massive criminal sprawled at her feet. Yua couldn't help but let out a heavy, exasperated sigh the moment she realized the door in front of her had been firmly shut. "Seriously, who is he?" "That guy." Outside, Seo Yul couldn't hear a word of it, so he could only lean quietly against the door and breathe a massive sigh of relief. Who knows how much time went by, but the surrounding buildings started lighting up to prepare for a brand new day of activity. Having waited outside for so long, Seo Yul felt pretty exhausted, slumping his back and yawning repeatedly. Suddenly, a strange groaning sound coming from behind unintentionally caught his attention. Turns out it was Doppelganger being slowly hauled out by the security guards. Weird, endless phrases kept rambling out of his mouth. "Kill me. Please, just make it stop." While Seo Yul was blankly staring at Doppelganger's weak, battered figure, Yua slowly stepped out and addressed him. When he nervously turned around and answered out of sheer instinct, "Lady Yua." Just as Seo Yul was about to stand up to chat with her, the guard who had followed Yua earlier suddenly spoke up. "Lady Yua, are you alright?" That accidental interruption annoyed her quite a bit, making her snap an order immediately. I'm fine, so please don't interrupt our conversation. That bone-chilling tone scared the guard so badly he practically bowed all the way to the ground. I am deeply sorry. Seo Yul hurriedly spoke up to change the subject and ease the tension a bit. Have you decided to hand Doppelganger over to the police? When Yua gave a calm nod in confirmation, yeah, I vented my anger enough. He couldn't hold back the admiration that had been building up in his heart for a while now. That's incredible. I really didn't think I could exercise that kind of self-control. Yua intentionally brushed off the compliment so she could get straight to the point. Now that we know he belongs to the truth seekers, taking this approach will be much more beneficial for us. Yet she also couldn't help but frown and ask an off-topic question. By the way, what have you been holding in your hand this whole time? That sudden shift in topic caught Seo Yul off guard, making him look pretty flustered. This? I've been waiting to give this back to you. Here you go. Yua took the item out of instinct, even though she had no idea what it was. However, when Seo Yul casually gave a sincere explanation, while I was undercover at the casino, the money you lent me generated quite a bit of profit. She looked at the contents inside the bag in total confusion and blurted out in utter shock, this much in such a short amount of time? You're returning every single bit of it? Seo Yul didn't even have to think twice, nodding in confirmation right away. Yes, my one and only goal was to capture Doppelganger, and if I was able to earn your trust, Lady Yua, I believe that's a reward more valuable than anything else. What do you think? Do you trust me a little bit more now? The polite probing question left Yua stunned for a few seconds. Her inner thoughts waging a non-stop battle forced her to stare at the pouch of money for a long moment. Before long, Yua shoved the money bag right back into Seo Yul's chest. If that's the case, please take this as a reward. When he expressed his confusion and raised his hand to block her out of instinct, she pushed the item into his hands with even more force. Thanks to you, I was able to avenge my guild members. Plus, I ended up being the one taking all the credit for capturing Doppelganger instead of you. Unexpectedly, even when standing in front of wealth, he didn't show a single second of hesitation. No, really, it's totally fine. Which made Yua feel even more embarrassed to the point where she had to shout out loud, what do you mean it's fine? It makes zero sense for me not to offer any reward at all. Her firm stance forced Seo Yul to raise an eyebrow and think for a brief moment. A reward, huh? A sudden thought flashed through his mind, making him chuckle out loud as he addressed her. Then could I ask you for a favor instead? Yua sensed that he had come up with something, so she quickly adopted a professional tone. Of course. In the name of Yua, president of the Baihan Guild, ask for whatever you want and I'll make it happen, no matter what it is. Who knows how that conversation unfolded, but the two of them ended up walking to a particularly crucial area of the Baihan Guild. While Seo Yul was busy marveling at the sight unfolding right before his eyes, Yua simply presented it with clear pride written all over her cute little face. It's right over here, the treasure vault of our Baihan Guild. She slowly guided her honored guest inside this magnificent room. Yua simply wanted to personally explain things to her young benefactor. This place is packed with dungeon loot collected over many years, alongside equipment crafted by master artisans. You're the very first outsider non-guild member to ever step foot in here. Go ahead and pick any item you like. You're free to take as many as you want. Despite receiving such a sweet offer, Seo Yul casually gave an unscripted response. No, just one item is plenty. His somewhat nonchalant reaction clearly left Yua bewildered. Will you really be satisfied with just that? He was too busy searching for the exact item he wanted to bother answering her question. Besides, the gear in here is basically pie in the sky for me anyway. Sure, I can equip anything, but due to a system glitch, I can only use it for about a minute. But there is an exception. Seo Yul's eyes suddenly lit up the moment he spotted the item he had been craving for who knows how long. He cheered out loud in excitement, making Yua jump in surprise. Found it. She watched as he showed visible excitement over a pair of totally ordinary-looking gauntlets. A surge of curiosity made Yua unable to hold back the question in her heart. Are you absolutely sure you only need that one? Seo Yul saw right through her thoughts, casually replying with a short and sweet answer. Yes, this is more than enough. Letting his inner monologue celebrate this new discovery, because this is an ancient artifact that money can't buy. The exquisite pattern combining gold and black is reminiscent of a tiger. A balanced form that maximizes the destructive power and agility of the tiger beastkin tribe. Tiger King Gauntlet. Ancient artifact-grade items are very special compared to regular items. Artifacts carry the traits of the race that owns them, and their use is restricted to that specific race. That's why to ordinary people, artifacts are nothing more than useless collectibles. Seo Yul quietly looked up at the mark behind his shoulder, letting the joyful mood play out in his mind. but with my ability to bypass usage restrictions, just like during the World Tree Festival, I might be able to take on just the racial characteristics of the artifact. The Tiger King Gauntlet is a B-grade item with special options like Beast Roar and Wild Nature, huh? Even if I can only use it for 1 minute, this is definitely an incredible item. Seo Yul didn't want to make the person who brought him here feel any more confused, so he enthusiastically expressed his gratitude to her right away. Thank you, Lady Yua. Seeing his clear and composed actions, she let out a faint laugh. Do you have a hobby of collecting antiques? I really don't know what you're thinking. Her gentle yet deep way of speaking unexpectedly made Seo Yul pause and thought, Yua. In the original story, she was deeply scarred by the pain of losing her guild members, causing her to become someone who never opens her heart to anyone. I guess she has this side to her too. His strange silence made Yua instinctively ask in confusion, is there something on my face? Seo Yul quickly snapped out of it to reply awkwardly, huh? Ah, no. Before this meaningless conversation could drag on any longer, her familiar Shinyu hurriedly stepped in to address the respected guild leader, Lady Yua. His sudden appearance made Seo Yul feel tense, while making Yua happily babble, ah, uncle, you're here? Shinyu didn't care about the strange atmosphere in the room and only asked in total confusion, I heard you handled the doppelganger by yourself. Are you alright? His clear concern made Yua laugh. I'm fine. Shinyu frowned as he voiced his suspicion, how could you possibly? Yua, as if waiting for this exact question, immediately shifted the topic to Seo Yul. It's thanks to that strange student over there. For some reason, Shinyu directed a cold, sharp gaze at the guild leader's savior. However, far from feeling afraid, he calmly replied with polite courtesy, nice to meet you. I'm Kong Seo Yul. In his mind, he also began analyzing the character out of habit built up since starting his new life, this man, that vigilant look and sharp suit. The habit of placing his hand on his hip near his sword. Lady Yua's secretary and the vice-guild leader of the Baihan Guild, Kim Shin-yu. Yua felt the clear killer intent coming from her close confidant, so she hurriedly nudged his shoulder right away. He's someone we can trust, so lower your guard, uncle. That reminder forced Shin-yu to bow in greeting to Seo Yul. Even though he really didn't want to, my apologies. Then, please excuse me so I can prepare our media response. Seeing Shinyu come quickly and leave just as fast made Yua awkwardly apologize to her guest. I'm sorry, he's a rather blunt person. Seo Yul didn't mind that at all. Instead, he lowered his voice to unexpectedly change the subject, Lady Yua. His oddly serious demeanor made her look visibly confused. What is it? Seo Yul took a deep breath to calm himself down before getting straight to the point. He knew. I'll just lay it out straight. That man is a spy belonging to the Truth Seeker organization. That brief statement clearly caused no small amount of panic for Yua. What did you just say? However, Seo Yul had no intention of stopping and poured fuel on the fire. Your secretary is a traitor. He could only say that much, swallowing the remaining important details back down. Kim Shin-yu, that guy is even worse than the doppelganger. In the original work, after acting as the strategist for the protagonist's party for a long time, he turns out to be the worst kind of traitor. The one who stabbed Lady Yua in the back at her most vulnerable moment. I'll make him leave the stage early right now. Those subsequent thoughts quickly vanished when Yua's trembling voice suddenly echoed in Seo Yul's ears. On what basis can you possibly? He slowly leaned in and whispered a barrage of words into her ear. After revealing deep secrets that no one could possibly know, he slowly turned to leave right away. So please be careful and take good care of yourself. Well then, I'll be off. Seo Yul worriedly looked at Yua's dazed expression and couldn't help letting out a sigh. This should be right, I guess. After finishing his job, he happily returned to his cozy rented room in the Hero Academy. The moment Seo Yul laid his back down on the bed, he couldn't help letting out a light sigh of relief. Today sure was a long day. He silently stared at the briefcase holding the Tiger King gauntlet for a long time, letting his inner monologue stream smoothly. Either way, I caught the doppelganger and got an ancient artifact. I also became friends with Lady Yua. For some unknown reason, Seo Yul suddenly sat bolt upright as his calm mood inexplicably turned into a mess of anxiety. Am I doing well, I wonder? Surprisingly, just a few seconds later, he managed to soothe that negative emotion all on his own. Yeah, I have knowledge of the novel, and I'm making the best choices in every moment by taking full advantage of it. Seo Yul reached out to open the bag while letting his mind keep running through its thoughts. That's enough. The best thing I can do right now with this gauntlet. A surge of excitement came over him, making it impossible to hide the smile on his face. Seo Yul tried to recall a certain unfamiliar, ruined land, a dilapidated alleyway suddenly illuminated by a strange light casting out into the vast space. Seo Yul had no idea that the magical door he was hoping to see had already appeared. so he just kept muttering in his mind, I can conquer the Golden Temple dungeon. Not knowing how much time had passed, all that was clear was that the weather right now was in full blast, baking everything under a terrifying, scorching sun. Seo Yul disappointedly dragged his exhausted feet forward while heavily panting for breath. Damn it, this terrible stamina. Yet he still excitedly found a positive note among the countless negative things around him. Thank goodness though. I didn't expect to find it this quickly. Seo Yul's memories from reading the story quickly flooded back to give him some necessary information. Golden Temple, D-rank solo clear difficulty. A rather obscure dungeon that nobody bothers to visit these days, or at least that's what it was known as. Seo Yul slowly unslung the bow off his shoulder while his mouth was still moving sluggishly. Should I do a final check before heading inside? With just a tiny bit of divine power, his calm brain immediately started working like a typewriter, bow equipped. I can feel the protection of the world tree. However, Seo Yul still couldn't forget the gear sitting at his feet, dagger equipped. He hurriedly twirled the dagger in his hand a few times to gather a small bit of power. Seo Yul quietly channeled divine power into it before starting his foray, activate trait. Wind Dew. Furthermore, with the gloves he picked up from the Baihan Guild yesterday, he silently stared at the strands of mana releasing from that mysterious gate for a long while. Before grabbing all the necessary gear to step into the strange space behind the gate, he thought, this is a bonus stage. Walking down the dark, unfamiliar corridor didn't make Seo Yul feel scared at all. Instead, he took the opportunity to calculate every possibility. As for this dungeon, even its name is completely wrong. Because no special boss or reward was ever found here, yet it was named the Golden Temple. Its clear difficulty was also ranked among the lowest. However, Seo Yul suddenly stopped his line of thought to stretch upward. As soon as he retrieved the glowing yellow stone from above, his inner monologue resumed before he even realized it. But in reality, the conquest of this dungeon hasn't even truly begun yet. This dungeon has an entry condition. He suddenly took a breath and bent way down to blow away the dust covering the ancient ground. As soon as Seo Yul caught sight of the ancient carving peeking out from beneath the pile of dust, a faint smirk broke across his face. The dungeon's reward is still sitting right there, untouched by anyone. He slowly reached out and slotted the bright glowing sphere into the eye of the carving. Seo Yul quickly stepped backward the moment he felt the vibrations beneath his feet growing abnormally intense. However, he didn't feel a speck of fear. Instead, he broke into a happy chuckle as his strategy passed its initial phase. If my memory serves me right, the real expedition starts now. The only thing was, how could Seo Yul have expected the floor beneath his feet to suddenly disappear, revealing a massive pit below? He screamed in total panic as his whole body plummeted into a void that was definitely not in the script. The air grew even tenser as Seo Yul's long legs scraped against the walls of the pit, causing him an unspeakable amount of pain. This unexpected turn of events forced him to keep his wits about him. Calm down. If I remember correctly, up ahead are traps and A-rank monsters, but it's fine. I'll disarm the traps with arrows, and if I avoid drawing the monster's attention. It was this exact train of thought, almost like predicting the future, that allowed Seo Yul to regain the positive mindset he had carelessly set aside a moment ago. Then I can go straight to the end of the dungeon where the reward is kept without losing a single drop of blood or fighting the boss. In an emergency, I can even use the Tiger Gauntlet. It was precisely because he was so focused on analyzing everything that Seo Yul failed to notice a protruding rock on the wall, causing the bow behind his back to get caught on it. Seo Yul suddenly found himself dangling in midair by his bowstring and opened his mouth in dumbfounded shock. Before he could even realize something was wrong, Seo Yul, along with the divine bow, tumbled down into the deep, abyss-like space below. A few minutes passed, and his back suddenly slammed into a flat surface, leaving Seo Yul stunned for a brief moment. But before a sliver of fragile hope could even form, he resumed plunging headfirst downward, answering the invisible summons from the center of the earth. Just like that, Seo Yul didn't even notice that the bow was no longer with him as he kept tumbling through the pitch-black space, having no idea when he would hit bottom. Fortunately, just as desperate thoughts began to swell inside his heart, Seo Yul finally crashed onto the floor. No matter how painful that moment was, he struggled to catch his breath so he could push himself up and mutter, "Ow. What the hell just happened?" The moment he regained his senses, what Seo Yul cared about most was hurriedly checking the items he brought along. My bow. He realized his voice was echoing more than usual, so he looked out into the surrounding void in a panic. Wait, more importantly, where the hell am I? Anxiety quickly surged through Seo Yul's entire body, forcing him to stand up even though he still had many lingering questions without clear answers. My pants are torn. I look like a mess. Suddenly, a pair of giant eyes snapped open, illuminating a small area and leaving Seo Yul completely stunned. The moment he saw those cold eyes, fear surged so intensely that his mouth visibly trembled. What is this? Seeing an intruder dare to wander into its domain, Gumho stood up in annoyance. It quickly let out a fierce, threatening roar, scaring Seo Yul so badly his heart nearly leaped out of his chest. What the hell is this? Surprisingly, his panicked brain still managed to snap back to reality and pull up some pretty useful information. A giant golden tiger as big as a house. S-rank solo clear difficulty. Gumho, the guardian of the Golden Temple dungeon. Why the hell did you crawl out from here? What am I supposed to do now? Seo Yul frantically gripped the small dagger in his hand, letting his mind scream out useless nonsense. I don't even have my bow, with just a dagger like this. At that exact moment, divine power suddenly surfaced, granting him the eyes of perception. However, being able to clearly see that he had hit a dead end didn't help Seo Yul regain his composure. If anything, he seemed far more panicked than before. There's no way to stand against this kind of terrifying power. Right at that second, Gumho suddenly swiped its paw forward, sending Seo Yul flying backward. He scrambled to grab that special briefcase and take it with him, desperately trying to put some distance between himself and the enemy. Seo Yul intentionally glanced back to observe Gumho's behavior, grit his teeth, and thought to himself, I have no other choice. He hurriedly opened his bag to grab the item he had miraculously acquired earlier, the tiger gauntlets. While Gumho was preparing for its next pounce, Seo Yul anxiously put on the special gloves and calculated his next move. The tiger gauntlets, 1 minute at most. I have to settle this before then. Seo Yul taking a defensive stance made Gumho so annoyed that it lunged at its opponent almost immediately. But this time, backed by this powerful gear, he not only felt no fear but even shouted out loud, "Come at me if you dare." The beast seemed like... Seo Yul didn't notice the new mark that had appeared on his thigh. The strange tiger face mark quickly glowed as if bestowing a blessing, altering Seo Yul's facial appearance to the point of a complete makeover. But at that moment, he cared about only one thing: the blood in my entire body is boiling. This is the special skill carved into the tiger gauntlets, feral nature. With my current physical stats, I have more than enough power to take down this tiger. Bring it on! As if reading his thoughts, Gumho immediately took a running leap and literally pounced right towards Seo Yul's head. However, what he least expected was that it merely tapped his head lightly once and completely abandoned its previous intimidating demeanor. Seo Yul couldn't help letting out a bewildered gasp, growing even more confused as he watched Gumho snuggle up to him affectionately like a domestic cat. What's this? What's going on? What on earth is happening? Why are you suddenly acting like this? Seo Yul watched Gumho comfortably do its cat stretches for a while before awkwardly voicing his inner thoughts. Don't tell me you see me as your master now. What in the world just happened? A dungeon guardian is supposed to be hostile toward anyone trying to conquer it. Only at this very moment did Seo Yul notice the new mark on his thigh, muttering in confusion, "What's this? When did this appear?" While his mind ran through an endless stream of thoughts, just like the spirit race mark, a beastkin race mark has been engraved? Could equipping the tiger gauntlets and ancient beastkin artifact have granted me a new beastkin trait this time? For some unknown reason, the system interface suddenly popped up, displaying a cold notification, unknown error. Painful shocks of electricity suddenly shot through the hands wearing the artifact, making Seo Yul scream at the top of his lungs. The loud screaming made Gumho look at him in confusion, its intensely affectionate gaze snapping Seo Yul back to his senses as he muttered, "Has it been a minute already?" As expected, there's a time limit. Even though I haven't mastered feral nature yet, gaining this beastkin trait turned out to be an unexpected bargain. This realization gave Seo Yul a new idea to address the massive tiger in front of him. "Hey Gumho, can you lead me to the deepest part of this dungeon?" Whether Gumho understood or not, it let out a happy roar like a kid who just got candy. Not knowing how much time had passed, Gumho strolled leisurely down the quiet corridor. Except this time it wasn't alone, carrying a noisy Seo Yul on its back. "Thanks, Gumho." Even though it didn't reply, he still felt an undeniable joy in his heart. Good thing I got the beastkin trait. Looks like it considers me one of its own now. But more importantly, Seo Yul had to cut his line of thought short as he looked down at the strange mark on his thigh, a heavy realization quickly washing over him. Which beastkin trait did I even get this time? It'd be great if I could use the ferocious special skill of the Tiger Roar Gauntlet. What a shame, I can only use the artifact for 1 minute. Ah well, whatever, at least it helped me tame Gumho, so I guess that's a win. Suddenly, a new sight appeared before Seo Yul's eyes, wiping out every single one of his thoughts in a split second. As Gumho kept walking toward that strange pillar of light, Seo Yul couldn't help asking in utter bewilderment, "Is it this place?" Pure shock quickly swallowed every other emotion, forcing him to think out loud in his head, the deepest part of the Golden Temple. That's right, the reward I've been looking for is right here. I never intended to fight the dungeon guardian in the first place. Leaving Gumho to do whatever it wanted down below, Seo Yul rushed up the winding staircase. After a good while, he finally stopped at the top, letting out a happy sigh of relief. Alright, it's this thing, right? Since his lungs hadn't caught their breath yet, Seo Yul let his mind do the talking instead of his mouth. A mysterious power beating in rhythm with infinite vitality, the beastkin artifact, Lion's Heart. In the original novel, the protagonist sold it to a collector and made a fortune. The moment Seo Yul thought about money, an incomparably sleazy laugh burst right out of his mouth. Suddenly, a new thought crossed his mind, forcing him to hastily look back behind him. But if I take this out of the dungeon, Gumho, the dungeon guardian, will vanish too. Why am I feeling so uneasy about this? Seo Yul took a deep breath and let out a long sigh to calm himself down. Whatever, forget it. He slowly reached his hand into the pillar of light to touch the lion's heart. I'll just leave it here. But let's equip this artifact for a moment to claim a new trait. The archery proficiency and wind walk I gained as spirit race traits. Unintentionally ignoring Gumho's gaze, Seo Yul focused on feeling the 2 marks on his body. Besides those, the 2 beastkin traits I'm getting this time from the Tiger Roar Gauntlet and the Lion's Heart. This is how I get stronger. Collecting traits step by step thanks to this system glitch. Those thoughts quickly dissolved as Seo Yul completed the initial process of assimilating the Lion's Heart, an act that inexplicably caused the surrounding space to flash with a blinding light. However, he barely paid attention to that, focused entirely on absorbing the item into his body. This process went on for quite some time, before a ray of divine light descended, enveloping Seo Yul. A few seconds later, he slowly opened his eyes in confusion. Seo Yul's mortal body hadn't adapted to the lion's heart yet, inadvertently causing him an unspeakable amount of excruciating pain. Seeing this, Gumho instantly showed its concern. That cute gesture forced Seo Yul to squeeze out a bit of strength to reassure it. I'm fine, Gumho. He waited until his body returned to normal before happily walking toward Gumho as if nothing had happened. Were you worried about me? It quickly showed its affection by repeatedly licking its master's face, making Seo Yul break into a chuckle. Stop, that tickles. After playing around for a bit, he cleared his throat and assigned a task to his newly acquired companion. Gumho, I'm leaving this Tiger Roar Gauntlet with you. Keep a good eye on these artifacts for me. Got it? The moment it gestured in confirmation, Seo Yul nodded happily with a proud smile. You really are reliable. I'll come visit you again later. See you next time. Gumho obviously understood his words, lightly waving its paw to show its agreement. Before long, the morning light had spread across the Hero Academy's campus. Seo Yul quietly furrowed his brows as his mind processed his thoughts. This place is amazing. My body should have been covered in black and blue bruises after being in that dungeon. I was even planning to head straight to the infirmary as soon as I got back, yet my physical condition right now is shockingly perfect. This bizarre fact left Seo Yul feeling more bewildered than ever. In fact, it's bursting with vitality. My heart is beating so strong. It has to be thanks to the new beastkin trait, right? Which means I've definitely acquired the beastkin trait. Boiling blood from the lion's heart. This unscripted development naturally made Seo Yul happier than ever. A trait that constantly grants insanely powerful physical recovery. This is exactly what I need most right now. Yet a new concern crossed his mind, causing his brows to furrow tightly, but of course, it has its downside too. A little while later, inside the academy gym, as students began their individual workouts, a new sight left everyone completely stunned. Seo Yul shamelessly walking into the gym caused unabashed confusion among the student body. Is he the guy who got straight Fs? Wow, he's so handsome. Seo Yul tried to tune out all the chatter to focus on his own thoughts. The side effect of the boiling blood trait is that if I don't burn off stamina periodically, I'll fall into a frenzy state. Seo Yul nervously picked up 2 small dumbbells while his mind kept running. Simply put, I just need to exercise regularly every day. Seeing him struggle to lift 2 small dumbbells with every ounce of strength he currently had clearly made the buff students around him burst out laughing in amusement. However, Seo Yul ignored them, focusing entirely on his own situation. Right now my physical strength is only F rank. But that's fine, thanks to this trait, I'll definitely make rapid progress. Right at that second, a soft, familiar voice called out, making him freeze in his tracks. Hello. Out of basic courtesy, Seo Yul quickly sat up and responded with a hilariously bewildered look on his face. Hello, you're Miss Hasian. As she happily replied, ignoring the intense stares from the surrounding male students, you even remember my name? He merely offered an answer in his head, not daring to say it out loud. Of course I remember, you're one of the strongest supporting characters in the original novel. For some reason, Seon was unusually eager to chat with Seo Yul. I watched your match against Choi Ji-hoon, pretty impressive, wasn't it? Though he didn't want to get too involved with famous people, he couldn't just ignore a direct question. Coming from the rank 4 student of the freshman class, that sounds pretty sarcastic. Surprisingly, instead of taking offense, she enthusiastically slapped him on the shoulder. You're overthinking it. While Seo Yul was clutching his aching arm in utter confusion on the outside, he was gloomily answering in his mind, the sparring session is over, and the freshman rankings have been posted. I came in first place, you know. Counting from the bottom, that is. How could he forget the image he saw back then? Rank 497 Kim Min-hyuk. Rank 498 Kong Seo Yul. Seon didn't notice his embarrassment and suddenly asked a strange question. You must be preparing for the upcoming placement exam, right? Seo Yul had no hidden motives, so he answered candidly, I guess so. Surprisingly, she brought up a rather unexpected offer. In that case, do you want to come train with me? This unscripted, proactive invitation naturally delighted Seo Yul, not just in his head. Seon is a total workout fanatic. Getting her help would definitely be amazing, but also on his face, thank you so much for agreeing to help. Sometime later, at the Baihan Guild headquarters, Yua was sitting alone in her office when she suddenly heard the familiar voice of her close aide. She tried to regain her composure as fast as possible before clearing her throat to order as usual, come in. Shinyu slowly stepped inside and delivered his report, completely unaware that anything was amiss in the spacious room. Preparations for the press conference regarding the doppelganger incident are complete, ma'am. The conference starts at 3 p.m., so I'll escort you there at 2:30. Shinyu seemed entirely unaware that the identity he tried so hard to hide had been exposed, effortlessly playing the role of a loyal subordinate. Our Baihan Guild must ensure the doppelganger gets the punishment he deserves. 4 of our comrades had to. However, Yua couldn't listen to any more of his lies and immediately cleared her throat to cut him off. Uncle Shinyu, how long have we been together? That sudden question visibly caught him off guard. Are you speaking to me? I've been by your side since before you became guild leader. Miss Yua, it's been at least 10 years now. Shinyu seemed to recall old memories, speaking with a touch of nostalgia. A lot has happened, hasn't it? Both the good times and the sad ones. He suddenly went quiet to compose himself before continuing like a rare, loyal mentor. But the late former guild leader would certainly be very proud of you, Miss Yua, because you've protected the Baihan Guild up to this very day. She stood silently, listening to those words, unable to tell if they were truth or lies, without saying a word in response. A few minutes later, she cleared her throat and spoke with an unusually cold demeanor. Uncle Shinyu, is there any secret you're hiding from me? That clearly startled him, but Shinyu quickly regained his composure to reply smoothly. Huh? Hiding what? Why ask that all of a sudden? What do you mean? Yua realized that even up to this moment, he still wasn't treating her with sincerity, so she directly voiced her thoughts, like your real name, for instance. That strange statement easily made Shin Yua's heart beat faster than ever. Still, he kept up his vague act. Pardon? What are you suddenly talking about? Yua glared in frustration at the man who had backed her for years before exposing the truth he had hidden all this time. Are you still planning to play dumb? Aren't you a spy from the Truth Seeker organization, Kim Shinyu, or should I say, Poil-chan?